tones of silence for the meeting.
Counting on you.
All right, GTV, we'd like to get started, please. Good evening, welcome to the Goffstown Planning Board. This is our regular first of the month monthly meeting. We have, under normal circumstances, we start with introductions. I'll start with Dave.
Dave Pierce, I'm an alternate member.
Colleen Mayu.
Barbara Griffin?
Brian Mazer.
Kimberly Peace.
Tim Redmond.
Gayla Bruck, alternate and recording secretary.
Philip Devanza.
Hollis Adams, Select Board Representative.
Scott Ozana, town engineer.
Joanne Duffy, Planning and Economic Development Director.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. Before we go anywhere, Joanne, could you tell us, the board, what this pile of papers is on the table?
Yes, there's several things. So I received additional information this afternoon on the Hemley project.
Okay?
And so what I did was I updated the staff report. So you'll find a new staff report just for, it's now called Park Place.
Okay.
It was the Village at Hadley Station. And it, at the top, next to the date, I have amended 9/14.
Okay.
So that's the first item. There is, let me see what else is here.
It's a traffic report to address DPW's comments.
We're not going to discuss them. I just want to know what they are and what application they apply to.
Okay, the second one is from Dubay. It's from Doug.
Yep.
This is a request for 2 waivers for the
Okay.
Park Place.
Next.
The next one is the updated traffic report from Tetra Tech, which is
Okay.
also Hemley.
Thank you.
The next one are comments from the fire department on Hemley. These
Okay.
all came in. This all came in this afternoon.
Okay.
The next one is a memo from Scott dated 9/6 regarding the traffic study. There was a previous study that this applies to, so this really is no longer in effect.
Okay.
There's also a staff report for Andy Catarat, 22 West Union Street.
Are these are updated staff reports?
Yes.
Why are they updated so late, Joanne?
This one is not updated. This one didn't make it into your packet. The other one I just updated.
Oh, it did not make it into the
No.
packet?
I updated the other one this afternoon because of all this material that came
Okay.
in.
Great, thank you very
sent
much.
us an email on this one.
Yes, I did. The next one is an email from Derek Horn to
Okay, we
Eric
can,
Strand,
we're gonna skip that one.
which went with the other one that you had received.
Yep.
And I believe the last item is a listing of changes to planning and land use laws for this
Okay.
session. That most of them have gone into effect, some go into effect in October. And I think that's it.
So those last 2 are for us to take home and read, they're not for anything for tonight? Or are you gonna go over them later at the end of the meeting?
I can go over them quickly later.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, action items, we have minutes from August the 10th, 2023. Did you have corrections, Kimberly?
I did have a single correction. I gave it to Gail. I believe she has made that change.
Well, why don't you give it,
I
why
didn't
don't you
make
give
the
it to the
change.
whole board?
My bad. Sorry.
It's page 5, near the bottom.
Thank you.
Just after the vote on the application, where it should read that Nick Golan thanked the board for their time.
Yes, there was just an incomplete sentence that said the board for their time.
Yeah.
Which should be changed to thanks the board for their time. That was the change.
Motion to approve.
As,
With corrections.
With corrections.
I'll second it.
did you say that, Phil? With corrections?
Well, that's fine. You usually make the motion and make the amendment, however you want to do it.
I would just make one motion with the amendment
So
included.
moved.
And you seconded, Brian?
Yes.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Joanne, item number 2, request for map 5 and lot 26.
We actually have a public hearing first at 7 PM on the CIP
I'm just asking to get these action items out of the way in case someone is here for that
Oh.
application.
Okay. Let me just find my paperwork here. Okay, so you're going over correspondence?
We're doing correspondence and
Okay.
action items number 2.
Okay, the application that was scheduled for this evening for the MAP 5 Lot 26 Elm Street Landscape Stone Masonry business has asked for a continuation.
So if anyone's here for map 5, lot 26 to speak on that application, this will not be heard tonight. Okay. Thank you, Joanne. We'll do a motion on that later.
Okay. The third
The
one,
the rest of them, we'll handle them as
Oh,
the,
okay.
as they apply to the application, as they come up.
okay.
All right, now, so the first item on our agenda is the CIP committee presentation of the 2024 to 2029 matrix. Who is our, you are a current chair of that?
I am, yes.
So would you like to have the floor?
Sure, I will take the floor.
You got it.
Thank you. So I'll start off, for the sake of the planning board, everyone has the CIP matrix in front of you that was in your packets. I just want to start by saying a good thank you to our committee that met every other week for several weeks this summer and put in a lot of hard work. Those members were Select Board Representative Kelly Boyer, Budget Committee Representative Samantha Kearns, School Board Representative Ellen Vermonkowitz, Community at Large Representative Gail LeBrecq, Community at Large Representative Jim Raymond, Community at Large Representative Brad Parkhurst, and Community at Large Representative Dan O'Connell. And Jared, I see that you are here too. The school alternate representative was Jared Talbot. So thank you all for your hard work over the summer because it's it's necessary, but it's not super fun. So I just want to go over the CIP. Basically, the CIP matrix is something that we look at as a town. We ask all of the town departments and the school board and the library to submit big ticket items that need to be sort of balanced as we look out into the future for the next 5 years. So what we look at were the years 2024 proposed CIP out to 2029. The goals of the CIP, I'm going to read it right from our objectives and policy, are to preserve public health, safety, and welfare so that we can provide basic services to the town, anticipate the demands of growth, build a foundation for growth management and fees, identify scattered or premature development, so it gives the town departments and committees, they really have to think through what they put on the matrix, and we've sort of shifted the process around in the past couple of years, and we really get some really great feedback from the town. They're really thinking about, how these numbers come into play. Supporting economic development, distributing capital costs, those are some of our, and then improving communication and coordination. So they come in before us, and then we have discussions of those larger ticket items. So as we went through this exercise, we broke it out into different sections, and I have committee members here tonight who are going to speak on those sections. So the first one up, Brad, if you want to address, we had administration and parks and recreation.
That's correct.
Gotta be able to read.
Brad, just for the record, could you put your name into the record, please?
Sure. Brad Parkhurst, 81 South Mass Street, Goffstown, New Hampshire, community member at large. What I have is to present to you very quickly is an overview from administration and Parks and Recreation. First, I'd like to do administration.
The page on the matrix, Kimberly. So you can
I
find
was
it.
just looking at that. So for the town capital projects, where are we?
Page 4.
Admin, yeah, so
Oh, I'm
page-
sorry, you need the page? or-
Yeah, sorry.
Page
We're gonna
4.
start on line 134.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, first of all, we jump up to line 136. The administrative department has 3 requests that are in the CIP, and they're all for 2024. The first one is new ballot counting devices. We have 5, possibly we'll replace all 5 for a cost of $50,000. But a lot of this is dependent on the New Hampshire State Ballot Commission, which is currently reviewing several vendors. and to make a recommendation as to who we go with, or if we don't go at all. Not in my ballpark. Next item is they need to refresh virtualization hardware and Microsoft server licensing here basically at Town Hall for the cost of $280,000. And this would be through tax appropriation, as would the ballot counting machines. Every 7 years, they need to update and make sure everything is current. These items run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And as anybody's involved with a lot of the techie stuff, which I'm not, it's very, very important to the town that we update them and keep them current. The third item is $500,000 for the final phase of the Grassmere Town Hall to put in an ADA accessible elevator so that everybody can get upstairs to the room that's been finished. This would basically be funded through the Capital Reserve Fund, grants and donations. This would have no tax impact on the town. Again, these are all for 2024. Questions? All right, moving on to Parks and Recreation.
Well, I do have a question, Chair.
Sure, Brian.
I'm not sure if it's the right platform, but for the ballot machines, is this, for the ballot machines, is this a kind of an edict from the state? Because-
That I am not sure of. I suspect it is,
Yeah.
but don't hold me to that. I just know that they're looking, from what I had read, they were looking at 4 or 5 vendors for
Yeah.
machines. Our machines right now,
I know they're old.
25 years
Yeah.
old. And as most people know, I've actually worked with the machines on election day.
Yeah.
And again, like everything else, it needs to be updated. Not that we're having, it's failing, it's just old, like me.
Yeah, because I know, I think, memory serves me, last year, I think Doug Pounds ran, and he lost by 8 votes, and they had a hand count, and the state counted, he only lost by 7, so the machines are working. So is it a matter of, like, it's out of support, out of maintenance? I'm just curious on what the direction is, why they need to replace it, if they are pretty much reliable. I know they're old, but if they're working, right? So,
Brian, I don't have that
Okay.
answer.
all right,
Well, we can look up why it was requested. We do have paperwork.
okay.
The purpose is to purchase new ballot counting devices approved by the state of New Hampshire for all local and state elections, replacing the town's current AccuVote machines. The current AccuVote machines are over 20-year-old, which is a concern for sourcing repair parts should become necessary.
Okay.
The master plan identifies the importance of maintaining and strengthening the services, the voting machines, and keeping our voting processes intact. So the New Hampshire Secretary of State's Office and Ballot Law Commission are expected to approve new machines sometime in the summer, fall of 2023.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Kimberly.
You're welcome.
All right, now, any other questions? All right, the next item we move on to is Parks and Recreation. There are 2 items for 2024. The most significant is to build a new centralized pool at Barnett Park. This original pool has been here since the middle 1970s. There's been feasibility studies on telling it needs to be replaced. There's a lot of work that's been done, band-aiding the pools for years and years and years. The dollar amount that's estimated to be $4,100,418. This has been on the CIP matrix since 2012 and keeps getting pushed out. And it was originally on for this 2023, but it moved out to 2024. They're looking for bonding this, but there is also a grant that's going to be applied for $500,000. We're also going to be using revolving fund fees for $250,000 to help bring down the cost of the bond. It's something the town needs. Personally, I'm speaking from. The next item is paving the parking lot at the sports complex on the back road. That's $80,000, and the Parks and Recreation looks to fund that with impact fees that the Parks and Recreation has. So that would bear no tax impact. If we move out to 2025, and actually I'll talk about 2026 also. This is the final two phases of completion of the sports complex on the back road, adding some more rectangular fields. And for 2025 and 2026, it's itemized at $1 million. Originally, the development of this property was approved by the town, and if anybody's been there, you see that there's already 2 fields down there. This is adjacent to the transfer station. The next item is for also 2026, and this is for the Parks and Recreation building itself, an updated heating and cooling system. Right now, this building is not climate controlled in any way, and as most of you know, that it's used by quite a few people, actually a lot of people, just to make it more creature comforts than anything else. And then the following item is we have for 2027 at $355,000 for repairing the current tennis courts, which have been band-aided. If anybody's been to replace tennis, there's a little crack that's in the middle of that's been there for years. It gets band-aided, then it gets band-aided again, and update that. And in conjunction with that, because of the very increased interest in pickleball, to also build seriously.
I know.
Separate pickleball courts. Right now they use the tennis courts, I believe the FAR 2 for pickleball. They're not official pickleball courts, but it's what we got, so we go with it. And finally, in 2028, looking for $50,000 for further improvement of the Glen Lake waterfront. Many years ago, Parks and Rec, I'm not even sure who was responsible for the Glen Lake, but the usage has increased, came under Parks and Recreation, did a minor fixing of the boat launch last year on the river drawdown, the lake drawdown, because we had the opportunity, but it's not a complete fix. But a lot of this work is, it's going to be cosmetic, cleaning up the area because of the increased usage on there. Again, this was recommended by the ad hoc committee that the board had put together, the town, that is, and it was one of their recommendations. And again, this is for 2027.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Is that just the boat landing area, or is it
It's the entire,
entire lake?
yes.
Okay.
Anybody else have questions for Brad?
I just want to jump in here and point out, for those of you who are new, we have a couple of new members. So what happens for each section, you can take it down. So you see in the gray, line 1424, for example, the totals come down for that particular, so Parks and Rec projects. Then we have revenues, and that comes down to the blue line, 159, so we take out the revenues. And then we have the totals after revenues at 160. When we get done with all the presentations, after we look at the subgroups, we're going to talk about at the pages at the end, how we total everything up, and what we've done a little bit differently this year to help us understand how we balanced it all out. So I just wanted to, I should have introduced that in the beginning, so that's where we're headed with all this, so.
Any other questions?
Can I clarify one thing?
Sure.
You mentioned paving of the sport complex parking lot. I believe it's actually he wants to expand it. I think he wants to take some trees down, remove some
There are
trees,
some,
and expand it.
removal of some of the trees is also part of that.
Yeah, I don't think he was going to pave it though.
I believe it's probably going to be a backing.
Okay. Yeah.
Anybody else have questions for Brad? Barbara?
Well, actually, my question is a follow-up to Kimberly. So I had this marked with a question mark for the bond in regards to the centralized pool. So when I look down at the Parks and Rec project revenues, I see 580,000. Is that the bond?
No, those are
No,
grants.
Grant and then.
So
impact
where
fees.
was the bond annualized expense taken into account at the end?
Yeah, so when we
Okay,
get to
all
the
right,
end,
okay,
a couple
it
of
was,
pages,
okay.
we're gonna take a look at how we
Yep.
did some math, some creative math, to try to figure it all
I
out.
think what Barbara's saying is the line where department proposed bond is and the whole rack there is empty right now.
Right.
And you
Yes.
probably should have seen the number in that slide.
Or,
Projection.
because
Well,
there are
it-
some bond numbers in there, so. we
Look,
can-
if you figured out a
That's
new way to
why
do
I
it,
just
you
want-
can explain it at the end. We don't want to get bogged down
Yeah.
on one line right now.
And to reiterate the process for those of you, and maybe in the audience also that aren't aware of this, so after we complete the CIP matrix and we accept it, that then gets transmitted to the budget committee and the select board, and then they choose to incorporate these items into the next year's budget or not. They have further discussions on these. This is simply a planning tool, which is why it is at the planning board.
Thank you.
Okay,
So who's
Any
your
other
next?
questions?
Thank you for your time, Brad.
thank you, Brad.
Okay, no problem.
Jim, I believe you're up for, I have you for library and possibly police and fire, but if you're not ready for police and fire, I can take care of those too. Chair Emeritus, Emeritus. So, and I'm sorry, these are online, so if we're looking at library, we are looking at line 126.
Good evening, I'm Jim Raymond, I'm a member at large of the CIP committee. Three items we're going to talk about. Kimberly said the library, police, and fire. We'll start with library because that's the more challenging one. As you know, the bond article that was proposed by the trustees last year did not pass. When the trustees came before us the first time, they still had a bond article in the matrix down the road a bit. Then on further consideration, they came back, taking it out, except as a distant placeholder, because at some point you'll have to do something for the library. It's a 114-year-old building built when Goffstown had 2,500 people. Now it has 18,000. And if you look at library standards, even as proposed, it was going to be below the recommended size. So now it's way behind. You can argue whether or not you need a library. That's for the voters to decide. But looking at standard capital needs, we think it should be considered. But what they've come back before us is a different plan. If you're not going to rebuild the building, it doesn't stand still. You still need to make some significant repairs because it's an historical building. Phil will appreciate this. Repairs like to windows are very expensive if you want to keep the historical standards. Like it's a window project, to replace all the windows would be about $75,000 and they need it. You have one toilet, it's not handicapped accessible to modern standards, that's going to be expensive. They know there will be more similar projects down the road, but they haven't formulated a budget or a plan for. But using what the school did several years ago as a model, they proposed that we put into the CIP annually $200,000 as a capital reserve fund so that funds will be available. Now, a capital reserve fund has to state the purpose and it's limited to that purpose, so they can't divert it, but it would be for capital needs. And they'll do this annually, so annually we can look at it, but for as much a placeholder, but to get the project going, they put that in $200,000 each year. Now, the other reason to put those funds in is there are grant funds that are available for particularly historical buildings of this nature, but they typically require a match, usually a 50% match. So by creating this reserve, it allows the trustees to apply for those grants that, without those funds, it's difficult. Now, they were doing fundraising for the big project. As you know, it's hard to fundraise for small repairs. It doesn't have the glitter. So they're really looking back to the town to fund a lot of these necessary projects. We'd expect in the future years as they come forward, they'll define each year what they have up and can look at it. They haven't done that, they haven't projected out. That's going to be more of a project to do. So that's the library. Unless anybody has any questions, I'll move on to the fun ones, because these machines that we're talking about have sirens and make loud noises. And
So
please.
before you move on, Jim, does anybody have questions for Jim on the library discussion? Thank you, Jim.
Okay. On the police, if you look, I think we talked a little, the town projects, we typically break them into vehicles, which are early in the matrix, and then other projects. So for police and fire, you have to look in two different places. So look first at the vehicles, and then further down at the projects, of which actually this year there aren't many. Look first at police. It's on the matrix, my matrix, it's page 1, starting actually the first item in line 3. And most of them are, you'll see, are police cruisers. The police department has evolved into a 3-year replacement schedule. You say, why 3 years? It can't be that many miles. When you look at police cars, the critical factor is not miles, but hours. Police sit there with the engine running, because they have to, usually running the air conditioning with their windows open so they know what's going on, because we want them to be cool when they have to do something. They have to be ready, and these vehicles are used a lot, so they're running all day. So it's not the number of miles, it's the number of hours. They get heavily used. And if you don't replace them, well, I forget what town they were using as their example. Well, I think it was the town up the river, actually, that doesn't pass its budgets, and the police cars tend to go on calls and have to come back on the end of a hook because they break down. And that's not a good way to run a police department. So over time, they've come up with a 3-year replacement. For those of you into cars, what was interesting is, when the chief talked about the COVID era Fords, they were lousy because people were making them, I think, from home. And Ford has been changing its features virtually every year, so you have to buy a whole new setup. When you buy a new Ford vehicle, you can't plop the old one equipment onto them. They'll change the width by 2 inches or something. So they're looking now at Chevys as an option. But it's been they've got some makeup time vehicles to do as well. So you'll see that as the big item on the line 5, I guess. There's other, well, that's pretty much it. It is it. Look at this. So that one's easy. Okay, look
Question.
over on.
Question?
Yep.
Question? Barbara?
Hi.
I'm assuming for the out years, that was just an escalation factor that they applied to the amount?
Correct, and they're not sure, as you know, they try to purchase through the state purchasing, and the auto manufacturers, love them, are escalating prices. They know there's been a shortage, and the factor that I just described, that they're changing their design slightly every year. I won't say unkind things, but it throws some of the equipment purchasing that goes with it. You know, fitting up a police car isn't just the vehicle; it's all the rest of the stuff. Has made that sort of more expensive than they thought. So he's taken a guess. Any projection to the future is a wild ass guess.
Those are all, so there's no expectation that next year's CIP will see a request for $200, $900?
No,
Okay,
and
I
don't,
just want
these
that.
aren't.
It's just an
Placeholder.
escalation.
These aren't
Okay.
hard numbers either. They do this as a planning tool, and then when it gets closer to appropriation time, what the selectmen do, they go crunch the numbers and come back with harder figures. So don't treat these as real numbers. They're a good faith estimate based on current information. That's a good question.
So to make that point a little bit clearer, we're on the verge of an imminent UAW strike.
Oh, mind the details, yeah.
What, I'm just saying, it's potentially could start at 12 o'clock tonight, but the anticipation of what this might do to the price of automobiles.
I was listening to Marketplace that
outside
broke
of our
down, and that
control.
was the topic, yeah. That will could have an impact. The other thing that we found are delays at the chief because of the COVID supply shortage. So we're lagging. Might have to do a makeup purchase at some point to make up for the delay, both here and on some of the fire department equipment. But yeah, that remains to be seen. Okay, flip over then to the matrix, page 3, line 94. There aren't many items partly to some stuff that's done last year, but there's 3 of them. One is the parking lot expansion. It's unfortunately, it might encroach into the Victory Gardens, but there's a grassy area next to the fire station. It's been used for parking by staff, but it's not adequate. It's, you know, it's rocky. It just doesn't work. So they want to pave it. I'll be political for a minute, but we are competing for police officers, and this great sucking noise from 2 towns that my firm happens to represent to the south of here that can offer signing bonuses and higher salaries. So if you're going to retain police officers, recognizing our salaries might not be competitive, you can't have lousy facilities and vehicles too. That makes it's a disincentive. If you just think of human nature, if you can go into a nice building and have nice equipment, you may not be as sensitive to salaries it may make up. But if you don't have that, you're really losing. That's the theory of some of these improvements. You can get by with a gravel parking lot, but it doesn't look good, it doesn't work. So that's in. Locker room expansion, similar item. This building was built in 1987 for 19 employees. We now have between 42 and 45. And as you know, we happen to have added women police officers who want locker rooms. Now, there was some improvements made last year, but we have lockers that were old high school ones from when some of you were in high school, not me. They're really inadequate, and it doesn't work, and people need a good locker room. So that's and a couple of years out. The third is record management. The software that underlies the record keeping and the dispatching, this is critical for safety, is from 2013. It's no longer being supported. If your software fails, you're in big doo-doo. Now, the chief wants to take time to look at good alternatives. He wants to see what other towns are going to do. So he's very careful about projecting this. We actually moved it forward a year because it's too risky if you don't. But it's still being researched what program they're going to use. But it looks like this is the one that he's looking at, and this is probably the cost. But we want to have one that's compatible with other communities as well. So he's doing some thinking. So that's the software side. For, the vehicle to have sirens on and make noise are more fun, but you need the software. Okay. You'll notice on line 98, there still is a placeholder for a new police department for the reason I just said. This is an old, small building. It's not really adequate, but we don't have a plan for it now, and it'll be expensive, and there's other stuff in the hopper. So he's kept it on there just to keep us aware that that need is going to be there, but it's not in the present matrix. Now, you can say, why should we make improvements to lockers if we're going to eventually build a new fire station? For the reason I just said, you got to retain the police officers in the meantime, so, and improve their function. Okay, moving on to fire. Every year we say to the fire chief, he's got to give us a ride in the fire trucks. He says he'll offer to put up the ladder truck and we can climb up it. And most of us don't take advantage of it for some reason. Look on page, I guess, yeah, okay, it's page 1, line 15 it starts. What's different between fire and police is police and public works to some extent are on a regular rotation schedule, replacement schedule. Not so much with the big ticket fire engines. They have a much longer lifespan. You project when they're coming up, but you don't see them every 3 years. And it costs a lot when you do. You'll see on line 19, the engine, it's $800,000. It seems to be what they cost. So in order to pay for these, we have, instead of putting in the operating funds each year, we have a capital reserve fund. And you'll see a lot of these, you put money in and it builds up when you have these big ticket items that you need to replace. There are some smaller items, like line 22, some of the cars and the trailers get paid out of operating funds. He did say that he'll take a look at the condition of them when the time comes up. So these may not come up on the years shown, like the boats. It depends on how beat up they become. But it's still something you need to pay attention to. The big item, though, is the pumpers, the trucks. The ambulance, I think that's when they got a grant for it. They've been able to push out, because they get 2 new ones. I think one was in an accident and they get insurance funds. So that's pushed out a ways. We're lucky, but that's, you can see on line 32, that's an expensive cost when it happens. But if you look down the page, down to line 37, you'll see a lot of the funds come out of the capital reserve fund, so we save over time. Looking then at page 3, line 105, these are the projects. There's really only one. It's the Mass Road Fire Station renovation. You know, we built the one downtown. Now the Mass Road is really antiquated. There was a study done in 2015 that estimated 1.6 million. So that's a figure that appears here. It's out a few years, 2026. That will go up because that's an old estimate. It's 8 years old. So, but that's the best number we had. So we stuck it in. Don't, as Barbara suggested earlier, don't take that number too seriously. But it's a need that we'll have to do. They were able to buy a lot of equipment with grants, so they're not in the CIP. Normally, we see a lot more stuff for the fire department, but they were able to catch up outside of the CIP matrix. That's all I got for you for this year, but I'm sure he'll let you go up the ladder too if you want.
Questions for Jim from any board member? Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay, up next, we have Ellen for the school district. And that is going to start on page...
Is it 6 at the end, is it?
The green and red page.
Yes.
Yes, it is. Thank you. So separate, yeah, well, like, line 188.
Okay.
Ellen has a big job. We don't have to go through all of these.
No, I'm not gonna keep you here all night. I do want to ask the chair, another board member here, Jared, arrived, and he, if it's okay with you, if there's questions or something that he has more information on, if you would acknowledge, if he doesn't mind.
Sure, join us, Jared.
You know,
Thank you.
participating. It's been a long time since we've gone over this in this
I
process.
know, yes.
Excuse me, both of you, just put your name in for the record, please.
Oh, Ellen Vermakowitz, Goffstown School Board.
Jared Talbot, Goffstown School Board, alternate rep.
Now, here we go. I'm going to go down. I'll start at the Bartlett Elementary School. Many of these items that I'm just going to read down the list because you have the list in front of you. You have the explanations and the funding mechanisms anticipated. Many of these are repeated at each building, with each building having building-specific items for them. So we have at Bartlett bathroom renovation, roof replacement, roof 3 or 4 lines for roof replacement, boiler replacement, parking lot and driveway overlay, pavement, mini splits for the classrooms to better control the temperatures, LED dimming lights throughout the building to help minimize the cost of lighting our buildings, laptop cart replacement and security camera upgrades and panic alarm upgrades. You'll see those in each of our buildings. And then I'm just going to keep going down unless someone says, Ellen, stop, what is that? Okay? You've all seen, I think, almost all of this for the last several years on CIP. There's very little in here, if anything, that's brand new. Okay? Maple, and Jared, if you know of something that comes up that you know we need to make them aware of, please. Maple Avenue, The same items, and going down, you see the roof replacement. We have air handling replacement, a boiler replacement. We do have some asbestos that needs to be attended to. Want to replace the current sign with EMC message board. The chimney needs some work on it, and adding a staff bathroom.
Excuse me, Ellen.
Yes.
Kimberly, where are the numbers?
School, I wish Scott was here. School did a little rejuggling this year, and what they're proposing is that we lump a lot of projects together in order to successfully bid and get them contracted in the easiest method that's going to get contractors to bid on them. One of the challenges is that small project contractors are so busy right now, we're not getting good bids on small projects. They don't want to come do one roof, they want to be able to do it in bunches of projects. So, and again, for the sake of planning, the school is looking at grouping projects together and asking for, hey, we want a hunk of money to be able to complete these projects. So that's why, as Ellen said, in the red block is everything under it that's included in, as noted as bond. So we really only focus on, for numbers wise, on broken out numbers in terms of what we would go to for the voter implications. We're looking at something that comes out of the budget. So as she's noted, so line, whatever that is, I can't read. So 200 has numbers in it. Everything else that's listed would either come under that bond. And again, these are assumptions that this school is going to go out to the bond, that the voters are going to approve the bond. So again, these are all lumped together assumptions.
Except there's no number for the bond. I see an adopted budget bond for 100,000 under column H. But when I go to the 24-25 proposed numbers, there's no number. So how do I know what kind of bonds they're looking for?
I believe that's why we're lumping them all together, and that's why they're the ones in red.
Well, yeah, but if that's the case, I would expect the number in red to be the total amount. And if the total was 100,000, I wouldn't even consider a bond for 100,000. So, is there a decimal missing there or something?
Okay. The red is the projects approved on CIP but not currently started.
So I took that to mean things that had been adopted this year, right? Because you guys are off, you guys are ahead, I'll say. So those had already happened. So when you tell me, so heating controls, which happens to be the same one on Maple Ave, and you have them both down for 100,000, that didn't seem out of line to me for the cost for that project, for those buildings. Maple Ave is bigger, but Bartlett has some peculiarities. So,
Sorry, Barbara, let me jump ahead. So,
Okay,
looking at line 312, jump ahead a couple pages. So, they're lumping them together, and then we split them out across the years in the yellow lines. It says $60 million bond, interest only. So what we did was, estimating, because the voters want to see, well, when we vote, what's our implications? So we're going to ask for a big bond, but we're going to split it out over the years, and then this is like your cost breakdown. Because it's hard for us to put in, like Jim just said, we've got a $20 million fire station. Totally throws your year out of whack. So what we're trying to do is bunch projects together and then take those potential bond payments and split them out over the years so that we have a more even planning system.
question.
Please.
So there's an amount for a bond payment in the total cost. So am I right that the total bond that you're looking for is 60 million?
Yes, that's what's noted.
And that's for a 10-year bond, 29 to 30? Or is that when they propose to have the bond in 2029, or is that when they propose to pay it off?
I don't know.
My guess is there's a problem with the note, not the total 60 million, but the note.
I'm trying to remember how this flowed. Because it made sense when we talked about it. I don't have a good answer for that.
it looks like, is it maybe a 5-year bond that is the, so like a 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, and then FY 29 to 30 is the 1.7 million plus the new bond, so it has interest only of 1.7 plus a new bond.
My best recollection.
Do you think a 5-year bond?
No, I think this is a
No.
30-year bond, because $60 million over 30 years is going to be a little around $2 million.
Is there a current bond that's already?
We have no bonds
Okay.
currently within our school system. So a lot of what we're trying to do is, knowing that we have capital expenses coming up in all of our schools, especially for the elementary schools, as well as the middle school and high schools, they're looking at different solutions, being creative to say, let's not try to get this through a capital reserve fund. $200,000 a year is not going to be able to tackle all of this. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to group all of these together and put them together as a bond package, knowing that we're going to knock these off throughout the years. So that was the creative way that Scott and I believe most of the finance people are trying to put this together. So I agree. Looking at Ellen's list, she has numbers associated within her matrix versus I think what you guys have where there's no numbers, and I'm kind of the same way
I
of,
think you guys have
what
the
the heck
July
is this?
sheets, right? July? I
Right.
still have
These
the
are the
June
ones
one.
that were, right,
I have the
resorted.
June one,
Right, right.
Okay.
so I have numbers.
So I'm concurrence with the board where, well, what is the actual expected cost, expenditure of this, knowing that the revenue stream would be through a $60 million bond that we're looking at. So I don't know how we'd want to continue, if it's confusing the board at this point in time.
I can try and get Scott on the phone if you'd like.
No, I
We've
think,
got an
I
application
think we've got enough people talking right now. Barbara?
So I understand the overall concept, we'll just go with it, but it would be helpful probably now to clarify the red and the green, because I have a question coming up. So could we address that now? Because you talk about the heating controls for $100,000 as being a bond, and that may be a mistake on this sheet, because we don't have any bonds right now.
So, if I may,
Yeah.
with that. So if you're looking at to the far right, these were slated to be conducted this budget cycle.
Right.
However, for reasons, we're not conducting them during this budget cycle. So what we want to do is take these, knowing that we're supposed to be, they were adopted for 2023, 2024. We're trying to push them to other years, knowing that they'd be paid for through a bond. So if you look at.
Okay, so these
Okay.
weren't contracted and just being,
These
you
will not
didn't
be
sign
executed.
POs and then
Exactly.
holding the money. This appropriated money is essentially.
We might have submitted RFPs or, statements of work,
But you
what
didn't
came back.
encumber any funds.
Correct.
So you're looking to roll it into the new project list that's in the bond.
Correct.
And that's what the red is. Okay, now I understand. Thank you.
So I think we're gonna have to go on the good faith effort of the committee and the board and review what they have for us and then send it off to the budget committee and the select board, which will get the numbers, and they can crunch the numbers and figure out what they're gonna do with it. Because we are only a planning tool. Brian?
Alan or Jared, on, I think row 213, that EMC message center, is that like similar to the GHS?
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
That one I know.
Okay,
Yes.
good. All right.
So now that we've broken your rhythm, Ellen, you think
It's
you can
okay.
pick it up again and start going again?
And then I'll go down to Maple. I read down Bartlett's.
Yeah, we did. make
Okay,
that.
and go down, replacement, we do have air handlers. Did I go through this? Asbestos abatement, there's some there under some of the sinks. Again, the pavement, the message system, looking at a bathroom. Okay, flip the page, Ellen. And again, security, you'll see security cameras and on some of the schools, exterior and interior doors needing to be replaced for security reasons. Glen Lake, which is our newest school, but I believe it's over 20 years old now, so time flies. You see these items, we are looking into and exploring the idea of full-day kindergarten, and whether we go that way or not. If we do, that will require significant addition at Glen Lake. So we have put that in there as a space holder going forward. Let's see, the sign again. Okay, and the security cameras, Mountain View. We do have locker room floors that need to be, or have been done, or out there again later on. Addressable fire panel, cafeteria tables, of course, window repairs. You can see down the list, the septic replacement, that's the original one that's up there. Transformers, the hilltop stage improvements, generator replacement. The cistern needs, phase 2 needs to be worked on. Keep going down for different kinds of things. The bleacher replacement, looking to make them automated. Boys' locker rooms, showers, bathroom renovations, lighting again, core switches, the labs, computers, carts, security, and secondary switches.
And you skipped the last one on 57.
Oh, dear.
New middle school, let's talk about
It
that.
is, there
No, we're not,
isn't
we
even a
don't
number.
want to have a long discussion about
Yeah,
the
a middle school, a whole new middle school.
For the purposes of planning, we are looking at a new school. I know it's listed as a middle school, but we're gonna say new school at this point.
Okay. That's 7.
There are no concrete plans, we just know something's gonna need to be done with growth in the town and our schools are full. So I'll go down to the high school. You'll see much the same items with the roof. Excuse me, some abatement in hallways, exterior door replacements. We have a,
You can read them if you like, or you can skip them if you like.
okay,
Because
just
we don't need to
tell
hear
me,
each one.
okay, I
Yeah.
don't need to, I didn't know how you prefer.
We prefer not to hear them all.
Oh,
because-
that's good.
Because there's no numbers, so we're just listening.
Oh, you don't have the numbers, okay.
Do you want me to just list the ones that do have numbers associated with them, since,
It's all going to be a part of your bond package, so.
Yes.
well, some of them are
Okay.
CRF and some
Or,
of them would be outside the bond.
Okay, he's got.
But it's
go ahead,
listed on the
Jared.
sheet, whether it's
Well,
CRF or bond.
Okay, so we have electrostatic plating of lockers. Let's go down. JSS security, door security. We've already done the field work, replacement of windows. The theater needs some work with regard to their doors, and an addition is listed that's been on there before for storage of the theater materials. Going down the list here. Furniture for the information center. And there's some drainage work that needs to be done near the tech wing. And that takes me to the bottom. Can I turn the page? Okay, help me out here. This page?
District information.
Yeah, looking for it. What's wrong? All right.
Moving on to the district
Go ahead.
information.
There you go.
So these are items that are at the SAU or across different schools. As you can see, really looking at, as the vice chair talked about, trying to coordinate some of our clear coats, pavement activities, not at one school, but across all schools or within the district, kind of grouping them together. And then we have some of the, resurfacing that we have, the Wi-Fi development program, making sure that we have safe, secure internet for our faculties as well as our students. And then we have the iPad replacements, as well as looking at one-to-one switch devices coming forward from a district standpoint. So that brings us to our total school projects that we have for the next number of years. Most of these are looked at through a long-term bond or a leasing program that I know that will be individual warrant articles that we would have within the March voting. But you kind of see the summary starting on page 311 to 319 there.
Okay, questions for the school board from planning board members?
I just one, going back to the GHS auditorium upgrades,
Yeah.
the seating and the
Seating, lighting, the
lighting.
technical things for it, yes.
So this is in addition to that?
So the project that was done was for the actual auditorium, for the performance, as well as potential using for schools.
Yeah.
Or for classroom. This that's on here is about storage. So when we're using activities, or we're using props, or we're using, dresses, those need to be in a climate-controlled storage area. Currently, they are just not, and we're losing them over time.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for the school? Seeing none, thank you both for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate your
Thank you,
effort.
Jared.
I'll just add too that I think that the school, you guys did a great job. There was a lot of work that went into like the math of breaking all this out. And it was part of our discussion about why, you know, the planning board, the numbers were not here because we're sort of like lumping and then grouping them together. And so it is different than we've looked at it in the past, but it helped, as somebody who's, I've only done this for 2 years as the CIP, it helped us to understand when you look at those yellow lines, 311, 312, and 313, how those costs get broken out and how, you know, in terms of trying to even out these and use it as a future planning.
And if I may, I do a lot of thank you and kudos to Scott. He does
Yes,
puts
to
a
Scott.
great deal of work into these items.
Yes, Scott
and
Gross, yes, thank you.
I don't know what we'd do without him, quite honestly, but many thanks to him. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Okay, last but not least, we have Public Works coming up with Samantha.
What's Samantha's last name?
Samantha's last name, I should know it, I know.
It's Kern.
Burns, yes, thank you. And we are looking
Public
at lines, this is Public Works
Public Works and Sewer
and
Commission.
Sewer Commission, so we're gonna start on 113.
So actually, I'm gonna start with Sewer
Guys,
Commission.
gotta start with
because that's
sewer,
the
go right
easy-
ahead.
My name's Samantha Kearns, I live at 5 Washington Street, Department 4, Goffstown, New Hampshire. So we're gonna take it to, page towards the end, line 165, Sewer Commission project. The Sewer Commission is fully self-supporting, it's self-funding, it's all paid by user fees. The Sewer Commission does a really great job working with the Department of Public Works to make sure that they're not tearing up roads for sewer lines, and then Department of Public Works goes in and paves the roads again. They do, they work really well to team on that, so you're not tearing up a brand new road. And it's just, they flex it out over time, and if you look in column R, it has the roads that they're working on. Any questions about the Sewer Commission?
Questions from board members? Okay, Public Works.
Fantastic. Moving on over to page 2, right at the top. So these are all Public Works vehicles. It's, Public Works does a really great job of making sure that they get really good use out of all of their vehicles. I would say our, the big, like the really big ticket item is, it's like in column L, there's a Peterbilt, it's a trash truck, right?
Yes.
I'm deferring, okay, cool. Yeah, I see, I studied, I wanted to make sure. And yeah, but they do a really great job of balancing out to make sure that they're kind of rotating those vehicles on a regular, not a super regular basis. Public Works kind of gets after the police department is done with the vehicle, it can go to Parks and Rec, and then after Parks and Rec is done with it, it goes to the town, and then after the town is done with it, it goes to Department of Public Works. So they're kind of the hand-me-down kids, but they do a great job, and they fix everything. Does anybody have any questions on the vehicles section?
I think if you look at line 77, as she said, I think that they tried to group them together so that we had a fairly even, number as you go across that from year to year, so.
Adam did a really great job.
Yeah, Adam did a great job.
It was very close.
Yeah, I know.
On to the next page, we're on line 113 for Public Works projects. You'll see there is the road plan, which is pretty steady across all years. And that's obviously to keep our roads well maintained. I know especially with our changing climate, it's a really important thing to do. There's traffic signal upgrades, that's, phased traffic signal upgrades that continues. Then on line 116, you'll notice the Center Street 18-inch culvert replacement. You'll notice that's a really high number, but it is 80% funded back by the state aid bridge grant. So that number is, it's a reimbursement. So we put that up and then the state reimburses it, and that's already earmarked aside. We don't have to worry about applying for that. If you're wondering where the Center Street culvert is, Adam told me that when you drive over through Center Street, sometimes you miss it because it's not like doesn't feel like a real bridge, but it's there. We also have the Henry Bridge over Piscataqua. There's a deck replacement there that happens a little bit later on, and then there's a Smith Road box culvert as well that gets looked at. Does anybody have any questions on the bridges?
I just have a question more on the road plan, and I mean, at 1.6 million, like, how much road is being done per year? Like, Is
Quite a
that
bit.
enough money?
I mean-
Like, how many miles are you getting done? How many miles do we have in town?
It changes
We
every
don't
year.
have the manpower to do much more than that.
Yeah, that was the answer why it doesn't go up.
Okay.
So that's kind of this year we actually had to contract more work than we typically do because
Okay.
we're an entire crew down. So, and we just can't find anybody to hire. So, I'd like to add one thing, this Henry Bridge deck replacement. Recently, we found some degradation in the steel deck panels underneath, and Adam requested Monday to the select board that we move it to next year's budget.
I'm gonna bring it back to column M, right past, not this year's,
No, it's a
24 is the column
J.
L. So you wanna move that back, you're
Yeah.
requesting?
So that 175 would move to L.
Okay.
And,
No, that's next year's appropriation, 24, right?
yeah,
You wanna
so-
add that to next year's appropriation.
correct, yes. Yeah, we need to, it's, if anyone notices the big pothole that's there, it's very concerning.
I fully support anything Adam recommends. Does anyone have any other questions?
Questions from board members?
I was just curious, could you comment to the culvert replacement? Do you know if that potential grant is a matching grant or then conditions?
So the Smith Box Road isn't a grant, it's the bridge over Piscataqua is a grant.
No, the culvert replacement.
No, that's a state building aid, it's not a.
Oh, you mean the Center Street culvert?
Yeah,
replacement?
sorry.
Yeah, so it's a state aid, it's a state bridge grant. There's a bunch of bridges that have been kind of red listed within the state of New Hampshire, and the state sent out letters to towns saying, hey, your bridge is red listed. Sign this letter and we'll put you in line. And so they kind of organized it based off of need. So obviously heavier traffic bridges or bridges that were in more need of repair, they got to go first. And that's why we've been on this list for a little while, which is actually nice because it's technically a culvert, and culverts.
Anything over 10 feet is a bridge.
Yeah, it's technically a bridge.
It's a bridge.
It looks like it's
It's
You just
not
don't realize
red-listed.
it.
Oh, well,
So
that's
they
good.
recently changed the state aid bridge to only include
Oh,
red-listed
yeah,
bridges.
okay. I'm kind of
Um,
confused. I went to the budget committee thing this
We
on Tuesday.
got on
you're right.
this state aid bridge list in like 2018, I think it's been, and it takes a lot to go through the early stages at DOT, and then you hire a consulting engineer, and then they develop the study phase, which has been completed, and now we're in preliminary design, and there's lots of submissions through DOT, so that's why it's like so far out, is basically because it takes so long to get through DOT. And part of the reason it's so expensive is it's a vital route through town. There's a 7-mile, I think it's a 7-mile detour or something like that. So we need to shorten the time span that it's under construction, because we do not want it to fall within school. It would be really bad. So it's kind of an accelerated construction, and that increases cost, and that's why it's kind of a high price for not the biggest bridge.
And Scott, it looks like, is that an 80-20 split then?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, so if you see the line that has 3,360 from the 4.2, I'm sorry, 3,360,000.
Right, yeah, lines 116 and lines 122 correspond with each other.
All right.
Okay,
Yeah,
any
thank
other
you.
questions at this time? Samantha, thank you for your time.
Thank you. On a personal note, being on CIP has been so much fun. I have enjoyed it so much.
You're
I
invited
love-
back next year.
I love being in service to the town. This has been so educational, and it really has been a joy. I'm full sincerity. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it.
It is a really good way to see
What's
how
left?
much things cost in your town.
What's left, Kimberly?
And so I wanted to point out, so we go to the back 2 pages. So as I said, in the past, you guys have seen matrices that have lots more numbers that are sort of like pulsed, where, and anything that was a bond was like, that money's all in this column and that for this year. And so what ends up is that it's hard to have that and as an uneven numbers at the bottom. So what we did was we asked, as the school board started, and Scott in his amazingness with numbers, broke it all down and said the bond over X amount of years would be this, this, and this. So we asked, and kudos to Danielle and to Derek for taking that idea and saying, can we do that with all of the bond payments? And so everything in the matrix that had a bond kind of tag to it, we have also played that exercise. And so when you see at line, so 326, 327, 328, we're kind of balancing it out with those bonds. Again, these are, we're kind of like guesstimate math here. But as you can see, I think the magic happens at 328, where we look at things, we looked at all the rationale behind what was presented to us. We did actually shift around a couple of items that we felt like were important, as well as to mostly balance the CIP. And again, this is, as I've said, it's a planning tool. This will go to budget and it will go to the select board, and things may change. Projects sometimes get kicked off or pushed around, or just, we don't think the voters are going to love it this year, let's move it. So I think in terms of meeting the goals of, thinking forward through our town about what's important, what's necessary, and how much is it all going to cost to keep our town running, I think this entire exercise, kudos to the departments in the library and the school board for just really thinking through it. I mean, if you guys notice, these packets are this big for a reason. They've submitted all this information to us. So so that's where we come up with. So, and I do have one more thing, Tim, after we are done looking at the matrix. So does anybody have questions on the matrix? Joanne, do we have to approve the matrix separate, or do you remember?
No, we make a recommendation to approve the matrix as presented to send on to budget and to the Board of Selectmen.
Okay, would somebody like to make that motion?
Nope. I'd like to make a motion to, at the request of the Public Works Department, to line 117, to move the requested amount of $175,000 from 2027 back to column L, which is 2024.
I'll second that.
From 27. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So that one change has been made to the matrix. Any other changes to the matrix as requested by staff or planning board members? Seeing none, we can have a motion on the matrix. Someone want to make a motion to approve the matrix as amended to be sent to the Budget Committee and the Select Board?
I'll make that motion.
Hollis Adams.
I'll second it.
Motion has been made to approve the amended matrix by Collis, seconded by Kimberly. Any discussion on the motion?
Comment, on row 312, do we need more information from administration about the $60 million bond?
No, because we don't discuss money
Okay.
at planning. We send requests forward for the money managers to handle, the Budget Committee and the Select Board.
Sounds good.
So, any other questions on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? I'd like to thank the CIP Chair and committee members for a job well done, and I know what it's like because I did it for many years.
Thank you. I have two more things to say before we're done with CIP. Sorry, I know this is taking a long time. So
Way too long.
in order to improve, so the town has worked really hard to come up with this process where we give the town, they receive these forms because part of our process is that this needs to be documented. We give the town forms. The feedback we received this year was that these forms are a bit agonizing and that they spend hours doing it. So we worked as the committee to sort of like look at what's essential, what's the information that ends up in the matrix, what's the supporting documentation really needed. The town staff did a great job of sort of streamlining that process so that we have a much simpler form that we think the department and everyone is going to enjoy working with next year. So that was one thing that was great. Saving paper is also great. Then the second thing that we did this year was we updated, so you got, I believe everybody's in our packets had the redlined version of the handbook and then the new version of the handbook. And I believe, Joanne, we have to vote to approve this, so I need to.
I want to take that to the end of the meeting.
You want to take this to the end of the meeting?
Yes, we have a lot of applicants sitting here waiting to be heard, so we'll take that to the end of the meeting and we'll discuss that at the end of the meeting.
All right.
Thank you.
So I think we're
Don't
done with
forget
our
Don't forget
CIP
to
numbers.
bring it up.
Thank you very much, everybody from the CIP. Good job.
Thanks for your work on that.
everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
again next year.
All right, sorry, Tim, back to you.
No, I just want to move it along. We'll come back to that at the end of the meeting. Okay, I need a motion for map 5, lot 26 to be continued as requested to a date certain. Joanne, have they requested a date certain? Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
9/28.
We're going to go back here a page or so. Phil, you made the motion to?
Yes, I did.
No, second.
Kimberly, or did Brian second it already before?
Brian,
you?
you can second.
Did you second it? Did you second it? I thought I did. I heard you speak
Probably a
up.
mumble. Yeah, sure.
Kimberly, and Kimberly P., she did it.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, motion to grant the request from map 5, lot 26 to be continued to the September 28th meeting. All those in favor of granting the request, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Done. Okay, now we can move on to old business. Oh, that was old business. We'll go to new business. Joanne, map 34, lot 57, could you bring us up, please?
Yes, the last time, oh, I'm sorry, this is Andy Catterat. I thought this was, never mind, I took the wrong papers out. I thought this was the other one. Let me just get my other papers. Mr. Catterat is here for permission to construct a second driveway to his property. He lives on West Union, and as you know, they've been doing some work on West Union, and they have also added some sidewalks, and some of the people who live on that street have not been able to park their cars because there's curbing and sidewalk there now.
It's future work.
It's the future, I'm sorry, it's in the future. And they won't be able to once the work is completed. So we already had one homeowner come in a few months ago and ask for the second driveway. So it's basically additional land that's next to their house, and there is ample room for a driveway. He just doesn't have the correct frontage that's needed.
All right, before we go any further,
I can't
can I have the motion, Barbara, please?
See it in the
For the application complete.
I just had it.
Joanne, is the application,
It is.
and is there any regional impact?
No, there's no regional
I
impact.
make a motion to find that the application
There
for
it
map
is.
34, lot 57 is complete with no regional impact and is ready to be heard.
Are any waivers requested, Joanne?
There are no waivers.
Okay.
He's asking for a conditional use permit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, Barbara's made the motion.
I'll
Anybody
second.
anybody gonna second the motion? Brian?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion is complete. So you, we can continue with the staff report now, Joanne. I didn't mean to interrupt you. We just need to do things in order.
I just found it. Okay, so for a second driveway, the frontage requirement is 250 feet. He has 201 feet. So DPW, as I said, will be installing curbing and 6 feet sidewalks on West Union, which will result in a loss of the applicant's family from parking on the street because the street is so narrow, as well as on the side of their house where they have additional land, which would comply with having an extra driveway. They need a conditional use permit in order to be able to obtain their driveway permit because of the lack of the 150, I'm sorry, not 150, the 49 feet. They have submitted everything they need. They just have to go through the fire department says the fire department is not supportive of multiple driveways into a single property. If approved, there will be no address assigned to the new driveway, nor will it change the address of the existing property. DPW has no objections, planning has no comments, and the only condition would be that they receive a driveway permit from DPW.
Questions for staff from board members?
Question.
Barbara?
This will be, the driveway application, does that mean I can come in for a driveway application to nowhere? So I can get a driveway to nowhere?
What do you mean
Yes,
by nowhere?
you could get a curb cut to, we just had one come in this week that somebody they have enough frontage, but they want to put a driveway, they have like 500 feet of frontage, they want a driveway just to park a trailer.
Yeah, okay,
So
that's
you
what,
can kind of have a driveway to nowhere.
yeah. I'm gonna write a song about that.
So my only question for this, it's not against the applicant, it's DPW. We've already had one applicant come in for a conditional use permit for a driveway. We have another one applying tonight.
Yes.
This sidewalk is gonna happen, right?
Yes.
Because I don't want all these extra driveways being done and then Public Works come
It's
back and
supposed to
says,
happen
well,
next year.
we're not gonna do the sidewalk. So
It's
now
on
we
the
have a
road.
bunch of conditional use permits for no real good reason.
Yeah, it's on the road plan for next year.
It will happen.
It will happen.
Thank
And
you.
can I assume there's no parking on that side of the road?
There will be no parking on that side of the road.
Okay.
There's likely going to be parking on the other side, but that only really benefits the people on the other side of the road.
Right. Okay.
Thank you for that.
Both Mr. Cateret and the previous
They're on
applicant,
the
they were
river
on the
side.
side with the
Yeah, they're
sidewalk.
both on the river side, yeah.
Okay, board members, any more questions for staff before I ask the applicant to come forward?
I have one question.
Phil?
I guess it's for Scott at this point.
Yes.
You say there's gonna be no parking on one side with his designated, there's gonna be no parking. Does your process go through the normal process of going through the Board of Selectmen?
If we're gonna put up signs, we have to, yeah.
Okay, so it's
Because
gonna be
it
by
needs-
ordinance?
Yeah, it needs to be by
Okay,
ordinance.
just so everybody's aware of that. Thank you.
Can't just plop those signs wherever we want.
Well,
I know some people would like us to, but.
Anything else from anybody at the table? If not, we'll ask the applicant to please come forward.
Good evening, Andy Catterick, 22 West Union, Goffstown. I'm not sure what you guys had. Did you get pictures at all?
Yeah.
Or-
Good job.
Okay, you did. This basically, what Joanne provided you, really is a summary, as it was stated. It's my understanding that there's going to be a sidewalk coming through, going across our property. To take it one further, Mr. Chair, I hope it's going all the way through to the other road out to Pleasant Street. Because if it
We
stops
are-
at my property, I will be very disappointed.
We are trying to get it all the way to Pleasant Street, or New
Yeah.
Boston, whatever it's named at that intersection. I
Okay.
think that might be right where it changes,
Okay,
right? From
'cause-
Pleasant to New Boston?
Because I'm
The tricky
questioning how
part is-
you're going to get it through there.
The tricky part is where the culvert is.
Oh,
and then
absolutely.
We might even be changing the side
That's
of
what I was
the road it's on at one point because of.
Okay. But as you can see, there's no sidewalk there now. We use this piece of land for, when I have events, people actually park on the lawn. I get them off the street because the street is already, it's a narrow street, it's an old street. This is a mature neighborhood that's been here since 1860 or whenever. And so we use this piece of land, and my concern is when there is a sidewalk there, I will not have access to pull cars off the road, enter my property from that parcel. So that's why I'm before you and hoping for an approval. And I would say that this does sum up everything that we're looking for. We don't have technically enough feet of frontage. We're looking for a conditional use permit, please.
Board members?
Question?
Please.
So you completed a conditional use permit criteria outline.
Okay.
So do you say, for the reasons stated in your application, that the use is specifically authorized in the ordinance as a conditional use?
Based on my knowledge of the ordinance, yes.
Perfect. All right, and if this is completed as proposed, this second driveway in the proposed location will comply with all the requirements of the zoning ordinance section with the specific conditions or standard established for the use, is that correct?
Yes?
As stated in your application. And the use will be compatible with the neighborhood and adjoining or abutting uses in the area that it's going to be located.
Yes, absolutely.
And the use will not have a substantial adverse impact on vehicular or pedestrian safety.
No, I would think it's going to improve it.
All right. And it will also not have a substantial adverse impact on the appearance and visual quality of the surrounding neighborhood. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And finally, it's, to the extent it needs utilities, they're there, but it's really not applicable, correct?
That would be correct.
All right, thank you.
Any questions for the applicant or staff from members of the planning board? Since everybody's so quiet, I think we need a motion.
I make a motion, we approve the application for conditional use permit, provided the answers.
Public hearing?
That's right, I finally, thank you very much.
Not bad.
My fault for being in a hurry. So, Andrew, hang out, don't even get up.
Sure.
We're going to open a public hearing at this time. Anybody wishes to speak to this application? Please step up. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Now we can move forward.
I make a motion to grant the conditional use permit, provided the responses given to us by the applicant, with the condition for approval that a driveway permit is required from DPW.
Second motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all is in favor of granting the conditional use permit for map 34, lot 57, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? You're all set, Andrew.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Once we get the notice of condition, we'll shoot you an email and it'll basically give you a driveway permit.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem. Have a great night.
Joanne, our next application is new business map 5, lot 54 and 54-1. Just give us a very short run. Is this a continued or is this new at this time?
So,
It's got to do whether I ask for a motion.
the last time this
I do have to.
application came in for an actual hearing was in April, but it was never found complete. And then you did meet with the board concerning the driveway and the relocation of that driveway, just to get a feel for what the board was looking for and what the sewer commission was looking for. So this application has not yet been found complete. I have one question on the completeness that Colleen and I were talking about earlier in the meeting, or before the meeting even started. So I have in my, under the planning comments, I noticed that
What page are you on?
I'm on page, well, my pages aren't numbered.
None of them
But it's
numbered.
the third page of the staff report.
Yeah.
It says here, number 3, grading drainage plan, A, sheet 8 of 23. The infiltration pond is located partially on map 5, lot 56-3-1, owned by Denise Langley, and map 19, lot 47-6, owned by the town of Goffstown. Yet the Langleys and the town are not included on the application. So their land is being affected, and I realize that there's mention of an easement. However, we really should have them as part of the application, since they are landowners of land that is being affected.
Joanne, you said page 3 of your staff report?
If you're looking at the one that was mailed to us, it's on page 2, and
Oh,
it's
sorry.
Planning Department comment 4.
It's the
If
amended,
you're looking at the amended
Page
one
3.
that we got today,
Right.
it's page 3, comment 3.
Okay, now I got it, thank you. So what's the board's opinion?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Phil.
Are they listed on the abutters list? I don't happen to have it in front of me, so.
Yes.
They're listed on the abutters list? And it's not in there?
as an abutter, but not an owner.
All right, I think they should be on it.
Well, I think it's going to be important for any approval. Because, for example, you know, there have been discussions with, I think, another applicant about drainage being in the town right of way, and it got moved out so that they didn't have to deal with it. And it sounds like this is still in it, so I think the town and an abutter, to the extent we're approving anything that's gonna be obstructed, are gonna have to be part of the final approval.
I
But
just want it to be understood that this comment of mine has been in there now since,
Right.
Right.
you know,
Do we have any letter of authorization from the abutter? That's,
nor the town, which would be.
No, you're not talking right now, just sit tight, please.
So I guess my position is that if the applicant wants to go forward, they can, but I think it's pretty clear it needs to be dealt with for final approval.
So you wouldn't consider it to have an effect on the completeness?
Well, I guess that's the question. I think
That's the
accepted
question.
step before, but.
So Joanne, what are you saying exactly? That because a drainage area on a neighboring property requires that the neighboring property be listed as an applicant?
Yes,
well, there are
Well, what-
improvements on the abutting property.
because they're using the abutting property
Yeah,
for their.
what if they have an agreement to use the budding property?
Then
Well,
we need the
that's-
Just a
agreement.
letter.
That's fine, but I don't have anything.
Well, maybe they'll produce one, I don't know. I just know that, I don't know that I would require them to be on the application.
It's okay if they produce one, I'm just asking this question for the completeness portion, that we don't have anything granting authorization.
And did you make the applicant aware of this prior to tonight's meeting?
Yes, it's been in here since the last set of comments.
Mr. Chair, if we were to put that issue aside, would it be appropriate to have a condition on our approval that the appropriate easements or documents would be part of the approval?
Well, I think that's what Barbara's alluding to, but Joanne is...
No, I'm not alluding to that
Whether it's
being
complete.
after the fact. I am not inclined to approve anything where I don't have some document in front of me indicating that it's been reviewed by legal and we have an agreement to go forward. I'm just saying that can be done as part of the review process. I believe staff recommended this be continued to October 12th.
I guess procedurally, would we waive that for acceptance purposes only?
Correct.
And
I think that's the terminology that's appropriate at this time.
Okay. So,
can
So-
I ask, in that, I think it's clear with the abutter, the private property owner, the town improvements, I didn't, and I don't know, Joanne, if you can, is that just within that, the right of way, that parcel that's at the front?
yes,
Okay.
that's correct, right, it's over, down on the bottom.
I mean, you're talking about where the
Yes.
rail
The
trail
Yeah.
easement?
Yeah. So there would need to be an easement or even possibly a land swap, maybe? Well, I guess that would lose their frontage if it were a land swap. But the grading of the pond on the town's property is pretty insignificant. It can probably just be handled with like a temporary construction easement or something. I don't think it needs to be a permanent drainage easement or anything. Maybe.
Well, we'll let the
Yeah.
engineer address that question when,
Okay.
if this moves forward right now with the language that Colleen has suggested.
Okay, so do you want me to keep going?
Go ahead.
So,
Well, do we need, if we're going to continue to discuss this, do we need to accept it?
Yes, we do need to make it, we either need to accept it and have, as Colleen stated, for acceptance purposes only, but we can't continue to discuss it without accepting it.
And do you know where, Joanne, do you know where the applicant is in regards to your request to the 65-day clock?
We haven't started yet because it's just being found complete this evening.
I
So-
understood that, but it's been in your, that's been suggested.
So what
Okay.
I would
just
We would have to
suggest
make
is
that
when
request
you,
of the applicant.
when you find it complete with no regional impact, I would also add on that the applicant, you know, they'd have to answer you, but that the applicant agrees to waive the 65-day clock.
I don't know that I can make that a condition of acceptance.
No, normally,
do all the time.
normally, that is asked after. It's
It's
after the,
not part of the acceptance.
no, it's never been.
Okay, I thought it was done all the time from my recollection.
It was done after it
Let's ask
was
the minute
accepted.
taker, is that an after or part of our minutes? A part of our, when we talk about waiving the 65-day clock, has that been part of a motion to accept?
No,
Yeah, it's a separate motion.
But it's done like one after the other.
No,
If
no,
it's-
no.
Okay,
it's-
it doesn't matter, however
Okay,
you want to do it.
I'll make it on a motion to find the application is complete with no regional impact, with the exception for the issue of easements and the lack thereof is noted and for acceptance purposes only.
Waivers, Joanne?
There are
Any waivers?
2 waivers.
Okay, could you
You
speak to the
have-
waivers, Barbara? Or did you?
No, I didn't, and also as to the waivers, because
You
there are
have-
2.
The waivers should be separate.
There was a
On
separate,
the
that's the,
table.
that's the memo that came in today that Joanne presented.
Correct.
So we have a motion to find that it's complete, ready to review, no regional impact, waivers for acceptance purposes only. Is that how you worded it, Barbara?
And lack of easements for acceptance purposes,
And lack of easements for acceptance is true.
because they're all sort of related and all that.
Does anybody want to second Barbara's motion?
I'll second.
Colleen, was that you?
Yep.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. So, at this time, Joanne, do you have anything else you'd like to add for the board's information?
Yes.
Please.
So in front of you, separately on the table, there was left comments, which I've also incorporated into the amended staff report from the fire department. They got back to us, or they got back to Doug this afternoon. They had originally had a concern about having a secondary access or egress, I should say. And Doug had provided the fire department with some answers, and Lieutenant Connor, or what is he now? Not- Captain Connor responded this afternoon, so he's no longer concerned with that because of the size of the project. It's not really large enough.
A clarification, I read the language to say that they expect that there'll be an access off of Tatro Drive.
Yeah.
That's very clearly how I read that fire department comment. And that would be consistent with Bog Road, where we have a one entrance into a multi-unit development, and we have the
Right.
access over the sewer easement off of Mountain Road for
The Bog Road project is much larger.
That's not another easement.
Oh, that's right,
It's a walking
It's a
path.
walking
it's a
trail.
walking path, that we talked about it as an emergency.
Well, we can address these
We can
comments.
talk about it
It
later.
says NFPA does not require a second entrance point for the number of dwelling units. The proposed Tatro Drive access did not seem to extinguish the existing driveway. As a result, we were under the impression it would remain. Not seem to extinguish.
Are you reading from something
I
else?
read that thinking that he was saying that they thought that secondary access would be remaining.
The existing secondary access doesn't actually go to that parcel though. It loops up to the cell tower, so.
We'll have a discussion,
We'll have a
but this is,
discussion with
we're
Doug
talking
on
about
that.
this prematurely right now.
Okay. Let's see, what else is there?
Yeah, I read it specifically.
So there are the two waivers that you'll need to address. I had some comments and questions that haven't been addressed yet. They're under the planning. The school district has some concerns with 2 items. They did receive a report to figure out how many school children would be affecting the schools, and the report estimates 12 school-aged children potentially living here. And the breakdown was 4.3 for elementary, which would be Maple Avenue, 4.92 for the middle school, and 2.76 for the high school. They're also concerned with the children being picked up by the school bus. I did speak with the school bus company, and they said it's no different from any other stop on Mass Road. That's kind of where it was left off. There is a new traffic study that was also handed out tonight, dated 9/11. We met with the, excuse me, we met with the DOT yesterday regarding this project, and they were also provided with the updated traffic study, and they will be reviewing that prior to issuing the driveway permit. The Sewer Commission has already seen this plan. I believe they're okay with everything. Tim can confirm that, but it seemed like they were okay at our last meeting. The assessing department would like the unit numbers changed rather than using letters. They'd like to just stick with numbers for the building identification. The Conservation Commission, this is one of the things why this is held up from approval tonight. They were supposed to go back with the Conservation Commission once they revised their plans, which they did, when they switched over the driveway. But the Conservation Commission had canceled their meeting for August, so they would like to see them back at the meeting for their September meeting. It's sometime at the end of the month. So they'll have enough time to meet with them prior to the October 12th meeting. And that's all I have for now.
My comments were removed from this one for some reason, but my comments are in your old staff report for this.
For the one we have in the packet.
So your original one that you got in the mail has my comments on it. Joanne, when she redid them tonight, thought they were old comments, so.
All right.
There's very few. My ones about the traffic report, I'm taking back because I reviewed the newest one and all of my concerns were addressed, so.
No left turn needed.
A left turn lane is not warranted. I just requested they provide a little more backup as to the calculation that they showed because it was a little vague. So, and I wanted it stamped as well, so.
Further question for Scott? I had marked the old packet. Where are the DPW comments? These are all pretty general. So do you?
So I've gone back and forth with them prior to them coming back. Like we hammered out all the drainage questions that I had.
Okay.
So there's just a couple of basic plan ones and then some comments about removing stone walls between parcels.
I saw that.
So
Yeah.
the packet that was mailed to us, that has your DPW comments in it,
Yeah.
are the germane ones for the meeting.
Those are all that I had, which were pretty few.
Thank you. All right. Any questions for staff from board members?
I'd also like the board to have a discussion about any amenities that may be offered. Currently, there's no common area for, exercise room or just, gatherings or anything like that. Typically condos do offer something. This is a small one, but it's big enough, it's 30 units. So I just didn't know if the board wanted to have a discussion on that at all.
Do we have any requirements in our
No,
regulations that
no.
require them to provide that?
No.
Okay.
And the lighting plan currently does not meet our ordinance. It just needs to be tweaked a little bit. And I also recommend that for the landscaping, that they include an irrigation system. What happened down at the condos across from the villa, we had recommended an irrigation system, and you remember all the problems when we had the drought last summer and what happened with their plants. And now the condo association is installing an irrigation system. So.
And it's a mess.
And it is a mess,
Right.
yeah.
And we had a letter from a school board member that was in the packet. That will be entered into the
Yes.
record.
That's from Jared Talbot.
And do you feel the need to summarize that letter, or we just put it into the record as presented to us?
Well, I basically did summarize it under the school report.
Okay, so I just want to recognize the fact that we did get a letter and could be entered into the record.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair. Joanne, on the same subject, what documentation do you have from the SAU concerning that the potential bus route pickup on Mass Road is business as usual, that you're not concerned about it?
Well, I don't have anything from the bus company in writing. It was just a verbal conversation. But I did talk to the person who wrote the letter on behalf of the school board, and he still thinks that there should be some sort of a pull-off or something there.
The bus
Thank you
company
for
thinks they should.
No, no.
I wanted to know where your comment came from.
Yeah, well, the first comment came from a memo from Jared Talbot. He was the school board rep, and it was dated July 13th.
Yeah, so I'm looking for the counter argument in writing.
Well, the counter argument, they only counter about the number of school children, and that's where they received they had hired Mark Fougere to get their updated numbers, but there's no mention of anything about the bus. I guess they could get a letter from the bus company.
So my experience with bus companies, they typically do not like their buses to have to pull off out of traffic because it's difficult to get back out. If they're out in the traveled way with their stop sign out, they're more visible. And those are the two big keys to bus safety. Having it pull off could just delay the bus route even longer. I don't know how aware any of you are with what's going on with the buses. They're already very far behind. There's lots of students on it, on all the bus routes, and I don't think they need any further delays in their routes, so I'm not so sure a pull-off is that necessary.
Mr. Chair, is there a further security, I guess, issue, I guess, for cars coming from, say, Manchester, like is it with westbound, around that bend?
Why don't we get to all this when they present their
Okay.
traffic study and their information for us?
Fair enough.
We're actually debating this application before the applicant has even had a thing to say, which is normally what we don't do. So, any more questions from staff, from board members for staff? And mumbling in the gallery. All right, we'd like to invite the applicant to come forward and put your name in for the record, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, my name is Doug McGuire. I'm with the DeBay Group and here representing the applicant. Yeah, I was on the edge of my seat that whole time. I'd really like to explain some items.
Why don't you do your presentation and you can blend them into your discussion with us.
All right, I appreciate that.
Rather than just start right out angry.
Yeah, well, I'm going to work my way through that. So, I guess, as Joanne alluded to, this has been in front of you in some capacity for quite some time. Obviously, there was a lot of other pieces, zoning issues and other ones before my time involved in this. That was years ago. I became involved back about this time last year. We had done an initial plan, and that was basically this layout, but with access through to Tatro Drive. For reasons of the access going through an existing condominium parking lot and other items, difficulties with the access, existing box culverts, We had proposed this plan that's before you. We did bring this to you back in April with kind of looking for a blessing to make sure we were going in the right direction. And what I had instructed the board, because we had been continued a few times, is I said, look, I don't want to come back to this board until we have a clean plan. Someone pointed out, one of the board members, that, where's all Scott's comments? It's because we've been working back and forth with Scott for several months now, between April and now, to address these items. And, I know some things look a little last minute, like with the fire department. That was a surprise to me. When I got Joanne's memo with those comments on last Thursday, that's the first I saw of Lieutenant, now Captain Connor, bringing up any concern of a second access point. It hadn't been brought up at all on any comment prior to that. So it was quite a surprise. And, so I did scramble to reach out and clarify with him, that was not the intent, and nor should it be necessary. And the email that Joanne is referring to does confirm that. And the language that, Barbara, you mentioned is that he was responding. If you look through the email correspondence back and forth, I was clarifying that, it's not necessary for a number of reasons. One, we have a 125-foot length before we come to a looped connection that is not more than 500 feet in any direction. So you have 2 points of access once you get through that 125-foot throat. The access that is a widened access is a 28-foot wide entrance with large flare radii, and it's been designed specifically to accommodate the fire trucks. As you may recall, we worked with the fire department on that. Again, never mentioned anything about a Tetro Drive connection. Usually you do one or the other, you don't build both. And so in this case, we explained out all that, and Captain Connor said, thank you for the clarification, yes. And I think the language after that NFPA discussion was him just explaining why he thought.
Okay.
He thought we were still proposing a second point, and he's saying, yeah, you don't need to. I just was confused, basically, is what that was getting at. So just to provide that clarification, as Scott said, we had a lot of comments on that first application, drainage related and other items, and we've worked through all of those comments, and he essentially has no further planning or, no technical comments at all, and, a couple just notation changes or what have you. At Scott's request, we updated the traffic study. We had done a traffic study for the Tetro Drive access point. Obviously, so the trip generation and everything associated with that, with the development, is not changing, but the access point is changing. And it was necessary to run left and right turn lane warrant analysis to make sure that there wasn't any improvements needed on the main line. And so the updated traffic study evaluated that. There was some, the graph wasn't extended long enough to show on the lane warrants, and so Scott had some comments on those. That's what the new study by Tetra Tech just clarified a couple of those components, but that the takeaway of the study is that this is a relatively low intensity use and does not require any improvements for this proposed access point. We confirmed that with DOT at a meeting that Joanne had set up with District 5, of which both Joanne and Scott attended. And, DOT, as you probably know from other projects, is very backed up right now because of position changes. Brian DeFosis has moved on to a new position. They hired a new District 5 engineer to review all the driveway applications, and he's very behind. But they were aware of this. It's been in front of them for quite some time. And, they didn't disagree. Obviously, they want a final bless the traffic study, and any eventual approval by this board would be conditioned on the driveway permit. So I think that's some of the big picture items. As a couple board members may know, we've been working with the Sewer Commission on the crossing. We're on the same page with that, and the updated details with the 10% driveway do provide ample separation and a little bit more buffer to allow the concrete to have some room. So the concrete is protecting for any deflection. That's the intent. But the worry was that the concrete was a little close to the pipe itself. And now we have a nice buffer of dirt in between the pipe and the bottom of the concrete, and the concrete will still act as the, the barrier of any deflections or potential heavy loads that could put a point load on that pipe. So they're comfortable. We've been working through the whole process with Grassmere. Lee Minnick is satisfied with the plans. He has no further comments. He does want us to come to the Water Commissioners meeting, which we will do, but...
Can I excuse you something? Got Lee Minnick. Lee Minnick is in Grassmere now also?
Yes.
Oh, they've expanded to Grassmere? Because that's Manchester Waterworks.
So it's Manchester Water, but basically Goffstown Water Precinct has another name as Grassmere Water Precinct, and they maintain the system.
Okay, because I never heard that before. 'Cause
Yeah, it was...
It used to be that the water precinct ended at Norman Road when the line went up Norman Road, and it's not connected all the way down to Petro Drive. There's a break in between those two water systems there.
Well,
I just didn't know Lee was down there, thank you.
No
He's
problem.
working-
I thought you misspoke, that's all.
Lee is working for both precincts now.
Okay, thank you.
So also, just kind of trying to hit all the major departments here, because again, my goal was to come to this meeting with pretty much everything in line with all of these, and I feel that we do have it to that stage. With discussion of the access and the drainage that's slightly on the abutting property with the Langleys, the Langleys are here tonight. They can speak in person to this, and the applicant has been in discussions with the Langleys. They are comfortable with the easement. We don't have a formal easement signed, only because we wanted to make sure that, again, plans were finalized. We hadn't even presented this officially as an accepted plan to this board, so we didn't have something official drafted up, but we did ask that the Langleys be present today, so that we figured that would be a question. I tend to agree with you, Mr. Chair. I don't see that, from day one on these plans, we've had an easement, and it was understood that that would be required, obviously. The project can't go forward without a recorded easement for that. And so I certainly agree that that needs to happen, but I don't see, just because you have an easement on a property, that they become an applicant or a co-applicant on the plans. So I would disagree with that interpretation, but ultimately it's up to the board. As I said, these plans that you have before you do have this proposed easement shown on all the pertinent plans. They're on the condominium site plan, called out as a proposed drainage, grading, and access easement on the Langley's property. And so, to me, that would be it's an essential piece of this project, and would be required to be, presented. But I don't see it being an issue, being a condition of a potential approval, because ultimately, if the Langleys and Mr. Monty don't have an agreement, then we can't put the pond where it is, and we can't move forward with the project. So to me, as a condition, it covers the town, and there's no issue there. Scott touched on this a little bit. I do not believe we have any of the pond on the rail trail portion of the property. In fact, it's fairly clear that it is not. The top of the berm, to get specific, is at elevation 282, and that berm is entirely on our property, not on the rail trail property. The only grading lines that you see in that area are just a cleaning up of an existing swale line that was between the existing property edge and the existing rail trail. Now, in my experience, I don't have a ton of experience with rail trail, but I did do Factory Street in working with that project. We had done some improvements with the rail trail, and so all under the direction of the rail trail, and so there wasn't any easements or anything necessary. It was improvements that were going to be done to benefit the rail trail, and then they were going to take over the ownership of that. Similar to what we have here, where we're relocating and building sections of the trail, and upgrading and, putting fencing and all of those items. And so, all of that would be expected to be maintained by the rail trail. And so my take is on this is that we do not need any easements or anything to the town. We intentionally made sure that the pond was not on the town property. I was in the audience on that other project and of when that came up on the other project, and it was literally in, portions of the berm were in the property. This is not the case in this situation. So, we can talk more in detail about that if needed, but I do not believe, the only easement I believe we need is an easement between the Langleys and this applicant.
I think we're gonna need one for the trail going through Mr. Monty's property, though.
On the lower portion.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned that before, you are correct about that.
We kind of missed that
Yeah.
in our earlier review, but that can all be hammered out. And that'll obviously involve town council and everything to review.
Yeah, and we have no issue, obviously providing the easement for those sections of the rail trail that are now on that front portion of the property. But yes, so you are correct about that. We will need an additional easement in that location. So, again, happy to go through any specifics on the plan, but I just wanted to touch on, because you have seen this plan before, the layout is exactly the same. The pond location is the same. We've talked through the rail trail and why it got revised down to the front area, and we've worked with the rail trail committee and also the Goffstown Rec Department that maintains the trail. So they had weighed in and are approving of that location. We had gotten straw poll voting on the grade waivers that we were needing for this entrance, and so those are exactly in line with what was discussed previously to the board. So, again, it's been a longer process. This isn't the first time this board's seen this, and it's been better part of over a year that I've been involved with the permitting on this, and so if there's any additional comments that you have or anything you'd like me to discuss specific to the application, but I do feel we have pretty much every major department on board with this plan, and that was not by accident. We took the time from April till now to get everybody on board before we came back to you.
Board members, Barbara.
All right, question, Doug. Thank you for addressing all those things. I just have a question of the easements on the front of the property, because I want to know whose land we're on as we go through, okay?
Yes.
I'm taking everything to the, I don't even know, northeast, whatever it is, the Langley side. That's a separate discussion, they're here. So as I come out of the project towards Mass Road,
Yep.
I'll call the back lot of the applicant, right? It's sitting on that until I get to what line is the line for the town easement for, yeah, maybe put a plan up. That'd be great.
So as most of you are aware, it's a little bit of an odd lot situation that we have here. What we have is there's this bolded out line here represents a separate tax parcel. Our position and his legal team and everything is that this has all been one lot and was bisected by the rail trail easement, but neither here nor there. We have an easement, parcel of land, whatever you want to call it, that comes through here that it has a tax ID number to the benefit of the town of Goffstown as being part of the rail trail, and then you have the remainder of the parcel. So my position is again, this is all on our property.
Right, okay.
And so there should be no easements necessary there. Where the rail trail is now deflecting out of this and coming towards Mast Road for the crossing, and then coming back up, Scott mentioned, and he's correct, that the town would need some type of easement for access of the rail trail on this sliver piece in the front. So that's where the additional access would need to be, or easement access would need to be for the benefit of the town, so that they can maintain the rail trail portion and the crossing as it comes through.
All right, could you just humor me, because I can't see anymore, to go to sheet 6 up there?
Sure.
It's a site plan. Okay. So outline with your hand where what I'm referring to as the condo or back lot line is.
That would be this bold dotted line right here,
That's the main one, right
the
here.
darkest one.
Okay, and then what's the shaded one just inside of that?
That is the sewer easement that's within that easement.
Right,
Or
okay.
parcel.
And then the next line is the other end of that sewer easement, right?
Yes, correct, right here.
Okay.
Yep.
And then the next line is another bold line, right?
And that is the start of the tax parcel to the frontage of Mass Road.
Okay.
The remainder of the overall lot before it was bisected. So
Okay.
this is the bisection of the rail trail, the dark bold line, dotted lines. And so this is the remainder, which has a separate tax ID, and then,
Okay, and so when I look at what I refer to as the cross hatching as you get to Route 114, and your flare that goes on to 114, how much of the rail trail is passing over the edge of your client's lot line? Because I
So-
can't really tell, it looks like
so
it
all of-
flares right to 114.
that's correct. So, I mean, obviously, the goal was, and this was discussed with DOT at the meeting that we had, but the goal is to bring the rail trail gravel section out and then do the treatments that the rail trail likes to see, a paved section with the truncated domes and everything at the crossing. And then this piano key is just paint, the piano keys is just for a crossing of paint, and then coming across and coming back up. So the little portions of the flare that are connected to Mass Road within the state's right-of-way, they're agreeing to that, obviously, yes, you have a connection there. That's all included as part of their driveway permit, as those connection points. They did make mention that typically they don't see truncated domes on a minor access like this. However, they also said if it's something that the rail trail is very adamant about, that they weren't going to push back very hard on that.
So the easement from your client for the rail trail will end at his property line, right? He can't give an easement to property he doesn't own.
Correct.
But the rail trail for the sort of what I consider to be the standard width will actually go on to state property.
Yeah, just because it's the rail trail in this case is being incorporated into the driveway curb cut. So it is part of the application, and it would be inclusive of the driveway permit. And so these improvements would all be approved as part of that, and DOT is recognizing that. And as I said, they brought up the truncated domes, and we said, well, it's something that that the rail trail typically likes to see, and it's consistent through the corridor in that way. And they said that's fine, essentially.
All right, I need to wrestle with this a little in my mind, because I was back when we were getting the land, and this was not one of these purchases that was through the state for various reasons, and I'm just having a little hard time having a rail trail that goes on the state highway being okay, and I don't know how, given the state of the state right now, I would even find somebody that would officially give me permission to do that.
Well, and I think, yeah, I understand what you're saying. I think the way they're looking at it is that we're proposing a crossing at an intersection. It happens all the time through DOT projects.
Right.
And so they're looking at this as no different than a sidewalk that would be coming through this area, and they're evaluating it the same way. So the fact that it happens to be the rail trail that instead of a sidewalk, I mean, effectively speaking, in their eyes, they're looking at it as a sidewalk. they understand that technically speaking, if they were to, need to adjust something in that area, they would be on the hook for the truncated domes that are being put within their state right-of-way. And this was all brought up by Rich Radwanski, at the meeting, and it's not really that unusual. I know where you're going with this, but it's really not unusual because if we were to say, as an example, if this were an entrance to a commercial development that had incorporation of new sidewalks, they would evaluate those items, recognizing that they're within their right-of-way and also part of the DOT driveway permit. But, and they would weigh in on what they want it to be, whether they wanted truncated domes or what type of paint they wanted and those type of things. They'd evaluate it, but they allow those things all the time. So it's not unusual. And so in this case, the only thing that the town would need coverage on is the fact that this sliver of land is private property, technically speaking, and so we will need to give easement on both sides to the town to allow for the rail trail to be on that private property. And we have no issue doing that.
Can I ask one quick
I
clarification?
want to wait and make sure Barbara's head is clear, because she was still.
My head is never clear. I shall ponder. I mean, there are crosswalks. I understand there's crossings, so
Right.
they go over. I'm just trying to formulate legally how we're doing this.
Colin.
I get you've had that discussion.
Just spark, because you quickly said that the state said that they understand. I think you said they would be on the hook. You mean they, the state, so if the detectable warning strips, so if those panels were needing to be replaced, the state is saying that they'll.
Well, yeah, there's a small section of those truncated domes which, because, just where the line is, you can kind of see, it's like one of the panels is partially in the state's right-of-way.
And so they've said, though, I guess when you say they, I have a hard time believing DOT will voluntarily pay to do anything. That it's not that they're going to replace those. It's going to be on the rail trail, or so if DOT impacts or wants those gone, that's going to be the town to take care of.
Well, I think realistically, this is no different than, if there was if the DOT, say, agrees upon a culvert outlet that happens to be within the DOT's right-of-way. Now, they'd have to have a reason to allow that or whatnot, but if they agree to that, then they're essentially saying, yeah, that's ours now. So this is a similar situation.
I think there's a little more insight into it. The DOT allows those things in their right-of-way at your own discretion, and you're
Right.
responsible for it, just like a driveway culvert or anything else that's in a right-of-way. They're not going to be responsible to replace or repair anything. That's statute, that's state statute. So I'm saying is that the DOT would allow it if they had decided they wanted to widen the road, or if they wanted to do drainage down through there and it was damaged. That's where I think the
That's
DOT
us.
is saying they accept it.
Right.
They're not saying they're going to accept to replace anything. I can guarantee you that.
So what the engineer said that Rich said in the meeting was, we don't like them because when we come through with the resurfacing, if they overlay, they basically have to adjust those landings up. So he made it sound like it's on them. I don't know what the legality of that is though. So.
I think
Get that in writing.
either way, the good news is that the rail trail at the, adamant request of having those, I think wouldn't be opposed to maintaining them. So I don't think it would necessarily be an issue either way.
Okay. Any other questions on that subject before I recognize Dave?
Yes,
Dave?
I support the idea that for pedestrians, this is a normal crosswalk, as if you would have had a sidewalk. And I think perhaps lacking in the plans that the bicyclists would be presented with stop signs.
We do have signage as per your standard added, if there's, additional signage you want or stop signs, but I think we have warning, the caution active driveway ahead signs that were the standard rail trail signs. Those are in there, so.
So then, okay. Only at one driveway crossing do we have a sign that says active driveway ahead, use caution. So that's what Doug referred to.
Any other questions for the applicant? So we're going to take a little break here now. I'm going to open the public hearing. Doug, did you have anything else you'd like to add before we open the public hearing?
If there's no, any other questions, I mean, there was a lot of
They may
information
arise,
before.
but
Yeah.
at this point, just to keep procedurally. So I'm going to ask you to return to your seat for a moment.
Sure.
And at 9:12, I'm going to open the public hearing. Anybody would like to speak, now's the time.
Denise Langley.
Steve Langley. I would just like to say that we are working with this development and we don't have an issue with working out a easement for the drainage. And, we'll make sure it works for both developments, ours and theirs. And, we support it. Do you have any questions for us regarding the easement? We've seen it, and we don't have any issue.
We don't do questions. We just do comments.
Thank you.
So as a result of that, we will need an easement plan, and further details, so you can actually see the bounds of that easement and any paperwork that goes along with it as far as for recording purposes.
Doug is aware of those comments, easement plan?
Absolutely.
Okay.
My name is Jared Talbot. I am a member of the Goffstown School Board. The Goffstown School Board has given me authorization to speak on their behalf, and this authorization was given to me on our meeting on August 28th. As a summary from my prior memo that you've seen dated July 13th, we are expecting anywhere from 14 to 50 new school-age children to come out of this development. This is based on our most recent public demographic study that we have, and that is also out on our SAU 19 website. These multipliers are for 0.44 to 1.64 school-age children for this residency. Also stated in the memo was the Goffstown School District's bus provider not going into private driveways or to private areas and staying on town roads or state highways. Stops for a school bus would be twice in the morning and twice in the evening or afternoon for the high school and middle school, elementary school pickup and drop-offs. Now that the development's comprehensive completeness review and site plan has been provided, I was provided a copy on August 23rd. It might have changed since then, but that is the one that I'm using for this information. The Goffstown School Board still maintains its concern for student safety during school bus pickup and drop-off, as well as the traffic that may occur from this site plan. Some of the concerns are as follows. On what was page 14, first, the visibility lines associated with this plan use a state minimum of 40 feet. If leaving the development egress and turning right onto Route 114, before the 400 feet line expires, the road starts to veer to the right. In this area, there is tall grass and overgrowth that always occurs in the area, which means visibility would be less than 400 feet. Second, the posted speed limit in this area is 40 miles per hour. A car traveling at 40 miles per hour is moving 58.7 feet per second. According to the National Association of City Transportation Officials, a non-distracted driver perception reaction distance is 88 feet at 40 miles an hour. Also, the braking distance is 76 feet, meaning that a car traveling at exactly 40 miles an hour on Route 114 will travel 164 feet before it comes to a complete stop. If a traveling car is at 50 miles an hour, the total stopping distance moves to 229 feet. These metrics are also for an alert driver, not a distracted driver. On page 7 of the plan, the site plan approves a 10% grade for its connector onto Route 114. This grade could lead to vehicle slippage or conditions if a private road is not properly cared for during inclement weather, which we know happens here in New Hampshire. Lastly, The site plan has school-age children walking to and standing next to Route 114 prior to bus pickup and drop-off, as well as traffic being backed up on Route 114 during student loading and unloading. All of these individual points may not be a concern. However, when we look at these points in totality, it could lead to problems. For instance, there may be an individual speeding on Route 114, heading west, not paying attention to what is up ahead, while natural overgrowth is obstructing the road's view in that area. Cars could be sliding down because of inclement weather while children are getting onto the school bus. Granted, the probability of all these factors happening is not normal. However, a combination of these factors happening at the same time are normal. The Goffstown School Board asked for the developers and planning board to take these into consideration into account and look for flexible solutions that will allow students to not wait for the bus next to heavy traffic on State Route 114. Also have a solution that allows for the free flow of vehicles on Route 114 during bus pickup and drop-off. As we know, Route 114 is a heavily trafficked artery here in Goffstown. We have seen other areas in town where this has occurred, such as a pull-off in front of the nursing home, which I know was addressed earlier. There's also the use of Tatro Drive, which would alleviate these and other concerns brought up by this planning board at prior meetings. As stated in our prior memo, the school board is excited that Goffstown is growing. We just want to temper this growth with focus on student safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Haven't closed the public hearing yet. So if no one else is here to speak, I will close the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, with your permission, I would like to address some of the concerns raised by the school board member. I do have
I
some.
would like to, if you have data that you have, that's fine, but I don't want to do opinions.
No, I do have data. Yeah, I mean, first of all, for clarification.
Briefly, please.
Understood. For clarification, Joanne mentioned that Mr. Fougere, that the school board had Mr. Fougere do a study. That's technically incorrect. The applicant did that study. So we, on behalf of, we provided that study from Mr. Fougere to classify, because, the school board had made a mention of somewhere 14 to 50 students. Well, we felt that was inaccurate. And so the study that we prepared estimates, they felt conservatively at a potential of 12 students. So that's a thing I'd like to be noted, and also to be noted that we, the applicant, provided that study. Also, just want to remind the board, because this did come up previously, and so there was discussion about how we were going to handle school-age children coming to a bus stop at their entrance. So one of the things, just to remind the board, is a discussion of sidewalk on this road. It was something that we said, oh, do we need it, should we do it? And the feedback was yes, this plan reflects that. So we have a bituminous sidewalk with a vertical granite curb for protection of pedestrians walking down to this area. We also widened out this section, and we're proposing a 6-foot bench at the entrance so students could sit and not be standing, what have you, in that area. So, certainly we were trying to recognize the needs of that, and also some of the comments that the board had. And I guess the last thing I would say is I would echo Scott's statement in that any type of pull-off, I think, is confusing in this case, because what you want is a bus to be able to pull up to a position where they do their advanced warning lights, they put out the stop sign, they stop both lanes of traffic in a very safe manner in doing so, and they do that by staying in the road, and that's intentional. So pulling off to the side would actually provide some confusion to a driver, because they're saying, okay, well, the lights are blinking, but they're pulled off the road, so do I not have to stop, or do I stop? I'm not sure. So to me, this is a very standard practice, and as Joanne stated, there's stops all along 114, and so that's our response to that.
Thank you. Questions from board members? Colleen?
Mr. Chair, I do have some, and I don't want to belabor because I know that it's, a couple of questions that I was just curious and wondering. I know that there's, on the plans, behind building C6, I don't know what that treatment is of that slope. Is that a stabilized slope?
That's
What is-
ledge.
That's ledge, so you're blasting, leaving like a ledge.
Yep, we
Okay.
verified that the depths of ledge, and it will be ledge.
Okay, so that's like a 20-foot ledge cliff in some spots? Okay.
Better than a retaining wall.
So.
Better than trying to
While
stabilize.
Colleen's right
Yeah.
there, you're gonna leave a straight ledge face as in your proposed plan?
It has a batter, in fact, a very conservative batter shown on our plans, and we have fencing at the top for safety.
Okay.
But yes.
I guess, and that just, I mean, it makes me think of like, what was it, Merrimack recently that had the, fallout behind, they had a ledge face behind the new outlets there. So I guess just making sure that that's obviously.
No, understood. I mean, we did show it as like a 1 to 2 batter, like a very, so it's
Yeah.
not like a split face vertical thing or anything
Yeah.
like that. And we accounted for that. That's why that bolded area is so wide.
Yep.
Because that's making up that differential. And so obviously that's kind of a pretty good slope for that distance, for as far as rock goes.
A minor thing then back in that same area, the tree line that looks like you're cutting back onto the abutting property. I assume you're not actually going onto that abutting property and you're gonna be, keeping that.
Correct, yeah. The reason we show that is graphically, the line is the back of the tree line. So if
Yeah.
we put that on that, it looks like the trees are overhanging
overhanging.
but yes, we
Yep.
would not be cutting onto it would be, we'd be cutting up to the property line.
The road, I think we established before that this Hummingbird Lane needs to meet the road design standards. So you've gone through that with Scott. My question would be, and I know you've got signs here for no parking fire lane and putting those on the light posts. I mean, how do we enforce that? Is that enforceable, the no parking, just calling it a fire lane? I mean, it's truly not a fire lane, it's a road, so I don't know the enforceability, or if our police department can go out if people are parked there to, ticket them and move them along, if the fire lane gives better enforcement authority, if there's.
They can.
They can't, so
Technically,
it's
our
private.
building inspector that could go out, right? That's what we discussed with the other issue we're having with parking.
Okay.
The building department, you handed it off to the building inspector?
Well, he's the zoning code
Zoning
enforcement.
code, it's more zoning code
Yeah.
enforcement, yeah, okay.
Okay.
So we do have a mechanism within our town staff
Okay.
for that.
Okay.
And one thing just to add that on parking, it was brought to my attention by the applicant, and we misspoke on our plan, but these are single wide garage doors for these units. However, the way that the units are designed is they're deep enough to allow for 2 cars inside that bay. So technically speaking, we assumed that every unit owner had 2 spaces, one in the garage, one in front of the garage. It's actually 3 per unit.
How long
So-
are the driveways in front of the garage, Doug?
25 feet.
Good, because I think we miscalculated on another project for large pickups that can't fit in the driveways. So consequently, we have a street full of trucks and cars that don't fit on a plan that we approved. And I'll say that I was part of that process and missed that, so. I want to make sure that the driveways are deep enough to accommodate a double cab pickup truck with an 8-foot body, which is what you need to have these days.
Understood.
Are we talking about no parking on this loop road?
We have the entire thing signed. That was something that the fire department requested. I don't know if it would technically be required, but they requested that, and we weren't opposed to it because we felt we had adequate parking off-street.
So I'm sorry to step on you, Colleen, I just
No,
remember.
I'm,
Please continue.
with the parking and this is more a question for staff. The zoning ordinance says that parking should not back into an access way or an access driveway. So I don't know how we interpret that on a site like this, because it looks like we have other, townhouse and condominium sites in town where we allow that. So is that not applicable to this type of development, or?
If it were, there's really no other way to park there
Yeah.
within those driveways.
So is that something that's maybe a zoning thing we need to look at separately?
yeah.
That it's, because trying to
Make a
apply
note of
that to sites like this, we might need to take a look at, amending that, because like you said, there's no way to design this site to,
I thought that only applied in like 1 or 2 zoning areas. I'll have to check it.
okay. Condominium declaration, I would believe has that been submitted to staff, will be reviewed by town council?
No, I just made a note of that. We have not received that yet.
I think that'd be a good place.
Unless you submitted it in the very beginning.
I don't.
You did.
Oh, we did,
Okay,
okay, early on.
we'll-
It's been a while.
We'll look for it.
So some of the maintenance notes and things, if those are if they're not already in there, you know, I know you have stuff in here about the Green GoPro certified snowplow and some of those things, maybe including those in the condominium declaration,
Sure.
so that way it's just a little bit, you know, repetitive, folks know what they're getting into.
Yep.
And I think that's all. I had some comments about the Fougere study and his calculations. I don't think it's not really relevant. It doesn't change the project, except that it would be nice to know, like, Morgan Estates and Crosswinds weren't in there. Those might be, but our impact fees are based on the unit, right? Not the number of students projected, so.
Right.
I don't think it's relevant, but to the point of the school board, I can see that there could be more students being generated than the estimate really comes out, but that's, I think, neither here nor there for our purposes tonight, so. Oh, and the only other, the sidewalk, our standard is 5 feet, the sidewalk's 4 feet, so I don't know if we add a foot on the sidewalk, or if that's a waiver, or if it's not.
We had talked about 4 at the last meeting, so I mean, I guess I missed that I would have needed a waiver for that, but.
I don't know if,
I missed that actually, so.
but, yeah,
So we can widen it.
so, sorry, that's all I have, but
Yep.
thank you
No,
for
we'll add to 5.
patience
You all
with
set,
me.
Colleen?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. Any other board members?
I guess my comment or question, I haven't heard a good solution, at least from my opinion, about the westbound traffic for vehicular, I guess, safety for the students. Because I have been on the road many times, and I know it's posted 40 miles per hour. People take the suggestion, not versus following the law, and they go much faster. So I am concerned about student safety and bus traffic and cars in general about coming around that bend westbound. I am. So I'm not sure if there's anything we could do for signage or decreasing the speed limit or something, but I am concerned about westbound traffic.
It's a state road, you can't change. And to just decrease a speed limit takes a speed study.
Yeah.
And they typically find that the speed should be posted higher because it's based off
We
a
don't want
certain
that.
percentile of the speeds of cars.
Yeah.
So the westbound approach, I just want to make sure that we're orienting on the plan correctly. You're saying coming this way?
From Manchester.
Yeah, from Manchester.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, the pickup, or like if the bus is in the entrance here, the kids are off to the side until the bus is stopped, notifying the flashers are on and everything. So you have exceptional sight distance beyond, because we have 400 feet of sight distance at the intersection looking out. But if you're in the road, you have more than that, because you're in the travel lane. So you have more than the 400 feet.
Well, I think my comment, not to interrupt, it's more the evening, the drop-off in the evening, right? So coming westbound, if someone's not distracted, I don't think they have a very short distance to stop.
Well, I mean, I think, all I can say is that we felt that they had very good sight distance in this location. We evaluated that as part of why we put the driveway in that location. DOT requires 400 feet of sight distance, which we achieve. And as I said, I think you'd have more than 400 feet if you were talking about a bus that was in the, if they're stopping in the westbound lane with their flashers on, and then the children are gonna get out and walk out and cross the road.
I don't believe they cross, I believe both
They're gonna
AM
pick
and
up-
PM, they go the same direction.
That's what I thought,
Yeah,
okay.
they're in the eastbound direction.
So, that being the case, if they're picked up and dropped off eastbound, they're not crossing the road at all, and anybody coming westbound is essentially, out of courtesy, they should be stopping in law, the state law, they should be
But
stopping.
that
however-
doesn't change things if it's only eastbound traffic.
Yeah,
I
so
realized
the
it was
route's the same
westbound.
AM and PM. I looked it up
Okay.
a few weeks ago when I was looking at the
Yeah, but my
comments
issue is
from
not
planning,
the eastbound,
Got
it's
it,
more
right.
school
westbound.
board.
Well, that might, I guess, it makes me more comfortable knowing that they drop off and pick up eastbound.
Yeah.
There's no crossing of the road.
Okay.
You done, Brian?
Yes, thank you.
David?
On the issue of buses, on this route here, I have never seen a bus traveling alone. They always have a line of cars behind them. And so as that, I've never seen a situation where a bus has been totally isolated and decides, I'm going to stop at this driveway, and there's a car a quarter of a mile back.
Yeah.
Not knowing there's a bus in front of them. This has always been traffic behind the bus.
Colleen, you're back on.
I know, I'm sorry. A quick suggestion,
not
maybe, maybe that bench that, and it's a minor thing, but the bench right now is right at the rail trail and right at the, why don't you move that bench back around the corner where it's still the area that's protected by the vertical granite curb? Because once we get into that corner, there's not that curb protection. I
Sure.
mean, it doesn't
That makes sense.
do a heck of a lot, but maybe the students are a little bit further back from the intersection if they sit there. If
I mean, you're
not.
talking about 20 feet back at that
Why
point.
don't you build them
Yeah.
another condo down there while you're at it?
Yeah.
Hang out in it.
Yeah, build a little clubhouse for the kids, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That would
but,
be nice.
but maybe just moving that might at least address some of the concern about the students right at
Yeah,
the
well,
intersection.
we can adjust that. Bring that back a little bit. It's a good suggestion.
All right. Anything else, board members? You don't have to rush this. It's only 9:30.
Cleared my night for this.
You cleared your night for
Yeah.
this? You can have the rest of it.
Mr. Chair, I just have a question for you.
Please, Doug.
So regarding the Conservation Commission,
I'm gonna defer that to Joanne, because she knows about what's going on with Concom.
well, and I guess I don't, it's been so long. I guess all I'm asking is, like, does this board need additional input from Concom? I'm not sure that, I mean, we're not.
Did they
we're
have a
not
meeting about
impacting
this,
any
Joanne, and
wetlands.
comment? What was
Yes, they commented, let me just find it.
What was the issue, Joanne?
They continued their August meeting, so they wanted to address it again in September.
So, these are their concerns. They were concerned with the stone walls being removed. They were concerned with the steepness of the slopes and the significant earth that will be removed from the site. There is a lot of ledge on this property, and there is concern with the amount of site runoff that will come from this development ultimately will end up in the Glen Lake watershed. There is not a lot of natural retention, and the removal of the vegetation will create runoff sheeting onto 114 in Glen Lake. They're concerned with the placement of the drainage structures, particularly located on the abutting properties. There must be adequately sized drainage structures designed to handle the increase of drainage coming from the site. They recommend a drainage maintenance agreement be written and recorded. They need to show snow storage. They need to show dumpster locations. Will there be any proposed sidewalks for pedestrian movement on the site? Best management practices should be placed during construction for proper erosion control. The commission requests copies of the SWIP Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan. That will need to be followed during construction of the project.
So with those comments, I would just say, we've answered every single one of those in one way or another, or, you know, I think Scott could weigh in on, you know, as far as the drainage concerns. I mean, we're proposing an infiltration basin on this site. We have good soils at the bottom. I know, it's funny because you have ledge in the back, but in the front, closer to 114 is very good sandy soil. So we're gonna get infiltration there, which is a good thing. We do not have dumpsters. We have individual trash storage, and it can be housed in the garages of the units.
And what happens to the trash? at the end of
Private pickup.
Private pickup?
Yep, private pickup, individual dumpsters. So I guess the only reason I'm bringing that up is because, again, I tried to have all my ducks in a row on this. I don't see any need to return to Conservation Commission. I can't imagine that this board would need any additional information based on the comments, and I think we have addressed all these comments through the application, but just wanted to bring that up to the board to see if, You know, I mean, typically, Conservation Commission weighs in on wetland impacts or something related more to crossings or environmental concerns. And in this site, I was surprised we kind of went to Concom at all, but going once, I didn't know if we needed to go twice.
Mr. Chairman, it's always, since I've been here, it's been practice to always send, except for something very minor, like maybe a lot line adjustment, we've always sent all plans to the Conservation Commission because they've requested that they review them. We do receive comments from that board on a regular basis. And in this particular situation, unfortunately, they canceled their meeting in August. However, they did meet with the applicant prior to that and requested him to come back again once he had changed the plans when he moved the driveway. I did speak with Patty, who's the staff person to Conservation today, and she said they definitely want to see this plan again. And I remember there was a time, I don't know, 6 months or more ago when we went ahead and approved a plan where the Conservation Commission, it was the same exact situation, and they were very angry at this board, to say the least.
Okay. So when does Concom meet again?
They meet at the end of September.
So the Conservation Commission looks at a lot more than just wetland issues. We look at all natural resources. We have a natural resources inventory in town. We look at all the natural resources and the impacts that development has on those resources. So to limit it to just wetlands is short-sighted. That's not what it's all about.
Joanne, when do they meet again?
The 28th of September.
And when are you proposing this application be heard again?
October 12th.
That's
So
our first meeting in October.
Do we have a meeting prior to the Concom meeting?
Well, the next meeting of this board is
It's the 28th.
the 28th. Scott's right.
So the 28th, so is would Concom potentially hear this prior to our next meeting?
Fourth Wednesday of the
Yes.
month.
So we could receive comments from Concom before our next meeting, even if we
It's
receive
the
them?
night before.
Then, well, if we receive comments at the meeting, at our meeting, the next night?
Yes, that you would receive the
Potentially.
meeting. Yeah.
So that's something to consider, that's all. Doug, I want to ask you about sheet 4, the plan note for a stone wall to be removed at the boundary wall. You know the RSA. What is your statement on that matter?
Well, I mean, as you heard from the Langleys.
So are they the abutters?
Yes.
Okay. And in short order, are they consenting to the removal as an abutter?
They are, yes.
That's all I need to know.
Question.
Please, Barbara.
I believe I heard a suggestion for an irrigation system, and I'm looking at the landscaping plan. I'm not sure whether that's in here or going to be considered by the applicant or what.
I considered that a little beyond the purview of the board, but I guess, I don't know if that's something you typically talk about. You know, obviously the association is gonna want their, you know, they can decide if they wanna have Fenway Park or something less than, but.
In response to that, Doug, when we approve a plan that has plantings on it, you're responsible, you as the owner or the condo association as the new owner is responsible to maintain those plantings in perpetuity. So an irrigation system is in their best interest, otherwise they're gonna have dead plants in there. Somebody's gonna go out there and say, you need to replace these plants, which turns into a fight with the landowner. So I would at least think you should consider it as a part of the proposal because it's in the best interest of the future of the project to keep the plants alive.
Yep, I agree with you. So, I mean, I'll talk to the applicant about that. Would that be something like, you know, we'll place a note on the landscaping plan that say, I mean, because obviously we're not gonna like fully design the irrigation system.
It would end up being an administrative approval if you came in after the fact with it. But if you're coming back to another meeting and it's agreed to, it could be, you know, a note, we could make it a condition to approval. It wouldn't necessarily have to show on the plan, right, Joanne?
Yes, and then it would show on the plan before the plans are signed.
Okay, so you have to
When
make
you
a
say,
note.
when you say show on the plan, I mean, we're not like
A note.
laying out the sprinkler heads, but
No,
we're
you
just
have to
gonna.
make a note in your note column.
Got it.
Irrigation system will be installed as part of the plan or
And
however.
that, once the project is ready, for CO, that has to have been installed, so it's.
Understood,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Can I ask one final question about the access, so the driveway going over the land, and I know that the note is that the presumed fee ownership is vested with the property owner, and the town maybe only has the easement right over that, or we know there's a parcel ID, but is there any, has our town attorney, like, are they okay, is there any, like, liability concern with having a driveway across
The rail trail?
the rail trail or the piece of land that the town owns that has the sewer? I mean,
Actually, the applicant needs to go to the select board to get permission for that, just like
Okay.
the Hawks did.
okay, so that would be a condition of approval, that
Yes.
doesn't need to be done prior to plan signature, that's,
Didn't we make Hawks do that first?
Well, the plans they were submitted, we still have them, they haven't been signed yet, but the select board recently approved his, so.
Okay.
It's just a matter, we don't release the plans until that's all taken care of.
It was more complicated, more than just
Yeah.
a driveway to a development. It was
Right.
an easement for others too.
Right. That one was like really complicated.
About the Hawk site?
Yes, because there
Yeah,
was
but
another
that-
easement.
That other
on there.
abutter already had an easement across that property to begin with.
So there was
But it was moved.
yes, there was an
Right.
existing easement that made the issue more complicated.
Board members, do we deal with the waivers this evening? So the applicant knows where we are with waivers?
I have a question.
Go ahead, please.
I feel like we've covered a lot of these concerns except maybe number 9, no emergency access. Is that a requirement or something that needs to be
I thought he
changed?
addressed that to us.
So the
Kimberly?
fire department did send a letter saying that that was not needed for that size project.
Okay, thank you. And then the comment number 10 about the Dunkin' Donuts, that's no,
What comment Ken about Dunkin' Donuts? What page are we
sorry, and I could be looking at an old set. The one I have is September 14th.
yeah, the one from.
I can help with that, so, there was a initial concept submitted to the town about a potential for a Dunkin' Donuts on the property abutting us. And so Joanne thought it prudent to bring up that to District 5 as well, just knowing that that could potentially be coming forward. So when we met with District 5, the engineer that was advancing that concept also came, got some feedback. We're much further along than they are. They're just in their initial conceptual phase. So it's a non-issue as far as how it pertains to this project.
Okay, that's all that's really relevant.
Thanks. Anybody else? So I'll go back to my question, do we want to deal with the waivers tonight so we can, the applicant has knowledge of how we're going to deal with waivers? I think the waivers are something that, it's not the first time we've discussed either one of them. We've discussed these at prior meetings and had a consensus, but not a vote. So I think it would be prudent to deal with them this evening. Joanne, could you tell us what the first waiver is, Appendix A, Road Standards, 4A?
Appendix A 4AE is for the maximum grade of the driveway. As you recall, they had asked for the grade to be at 10% rather than the required 8%. And because of the sewer pipe being an issue, that waiver the board seemed to be agreeable to that.
Okay, so does board members want to discuss the waiver request?
Can I make a motion to approve?
You can make, if no one wants to discuss it, we can have a
I'm
motion.
sorry, Phil,
Well, I have my hand up.
sorry.
I missed the meeting that was discussed, and I read the minutes, and I thought from the minutes that everybody was in favor of it, but we were.
That was a consensus, that wasn't an actual vote.
We didn't
Right.
have an actual
But
application.
We had a discussion earlier, and it seemed that there was pretty much support for that 10% was a little extreme. And when I read the minutes, it just seemed that the board turned from not allowing the 10% to go with the 10%.
mean, you
Because the
got-
sewer commissioners that were on this board said that they didn't have a problem with it being at the lower percentage.
I could add to that, Mr. Chair.
Well,
I mean,
I'm gonna talk to
or you
Phil.
can-
Phil, the commissioners were initially, and Dave can speak, like, the commissioners assessed the 8% grade, which was what the board was requiring at the meeting. When we got the engineering drawings from the applicant at the sewer commission, at an 8% grade with a 12-inch concrete slab, which is what we required for the loading, there was 2 inches of sand between the bottom of the slab and the top of the sewer pipe.
Okay.
So that's when the sewer commissioners had a discussion regarding the differential between an 8 and 10% grade,
Okay.
which the applicant provided. By changing it to 10%, we got a larger amount. Dave, do you remember the differential?
1.2 feet.
10% is up to 2.2. Yes.
That's including,
Well,
that's
the slab,
including the
correct,
slab.
yes, correct.
So we went from 2 inches to 1 foot, 2/10, 1.2. So we increased the cover on the sewer line by 12 inches, 1 foot of clean sand. Therefore, the sewer commissioner is the one who came in and asked the board to reconsider, and the board had a discussion. So that was the basis for the request to increase it to 10%.
Okay, was there any discussion of going at 9% just?
No.
I understand that you're only talking
No,
about.
we did not discuss it at 9%. Not the board did not discuss it at 9%. And I did speak, but I basically recused myself as a sewer commissioner.
So Tim, I'll make a motion to approve the waiver to increase to 10%. I think it's important to protect the integrity of that sewer pipe, and if it just means increasing the grade a little bit, so be it.
So Collis,
The integrity of the
Kimberly, you
sewer.
initially started that.
That's okay, he can
So
go,
do you
and I'll
second
second.
Okay, so the motion has been made to grant the waiver to allow a 10% grade for the road into the parcel. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I oppose.
Brian's opposed. Abstentions? Motion passes. So tell us what the second waiver request is, Joanne.
The second is under Appendix A, roadway standards, Section 4AF, maximum grade within 100 feet of an intersection. And Doug's explanation is in his memo that was left on the table for you from the Dubé Group.
We're back to the sewer lines.
It's the same reasoning because the sewer line is 80 feet from Mass Road. So if you were to have 2%, 100 feet back, you'd be under the sewer line. with the rock.
That's not good.
Colleen, you brought this issue up at our prior meeting because you read it in our regulations, I
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah.
And we had a discussion about it, and even though you didn't necessarily agree, I think the consensus was that it was a waivable item if the board chose to waive it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, does anybody want to discuss this waiver request that sort of puts a tunnel under the sewer main to enter the site?
I make a motion that we approve the waiver of roadway standard section 4AF.
Second.
Kimberly's made a motion to grant the waiver.
Second.
Collis has seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
I oppose.
Brian's opposed. Abstentions? Motion passes. So, let's go back, Joanne, to the, is there anything else to discuss tonight before we move on to where we're going to?
I only have a couple other items
Please, Joanne.
that weren't discussed. On sheet 8 of 20, the utility plan, there's a proposed transformer behind units E3 and 4. And I was just wondering if there's a concern about noise from those, from the transformer itself that would bother the people living in those units.
Where are you?
And
you
I don't
on-
know how loud they
Is this
are.
part of your planning?
It's under the planning comments number 1.
Okay, thank you. Well, transformers can be noisy, but is this a recommendation that the applicant consider this? Or are we saying that we're not gonna allow it?
Well, I just thought if it is loud, if it could be relocated, or if there's an explanation about the
Where are we on sheet 8?
No, we're on our
sheet 8 of
yeah,
20
sheet 8 of
utility
20.
plan.
Behind units 3 and unit 4
Oh,
column.
yeah.
I don't know if it matters, Mr. Chair, but I mean, technically speaking, it's in front of units 3 and 4.
Oh, sorry, I said.
I mean, and to me personally, that does make a difference because, you know, it's across the drive away from units 3 and 4, and this is a garage under, so the living space is, you know, up above the garage, and then the bedrooms are up above that. So, you know, I mean, obviously you gotta have a transformer on the property. We thought it was a good location.
Some of us know, there's a typical green transformer that you see in any subdivision, or it's not a 8-foot tall one like
No, it wouldn't.
you see at a commercial building. It's a standard
Correct.
transformer
I mean, technically speaking, the utility provider is gonna have to review this, and they won't even technically give us what they're going to require until they fully review the plan under a work order, which they won't even look at until the plans are approved, so.
So I'm just guessing it's probably like a residential subdivision
Correct.
size transformer.
It would, yeah.
Which you see the little green boxes all over neighborhoods.
So we've got a noise ordinance, wouldn't that be sufficient?
Well, I would have to exceed the decibel levels of
I
our
don't know.
noise
I
ordinance.
don't know, that's my question, I don't know.
I don't think a transformer comes
No,
under
not that
that.
loud. I don't think.
I don't think it comes.
I don't think it would even come close to the
No.
decibels.
No, but I don't think
I
it
wouldn't
comes
think
under
so
the
either.
noise ordinance.
No, it's
That's my point.
separate. That noise ordinance is separate. It's not in our, like, subdivision regulations or site plan regulations.
I think it was a fair comment. If it was 10 feet off the back of somebody's deck or something, then I think I think it would be warranted, but being that it's across the drive, away from it, I think that's the best location for it.
What was your other one, Joanne?
I don't know if this has been done yet, but please label all map and lot numbers of abutting properties on all sheets. And then, number 4, landscaping plan, staff oh, I already said that one. Number 5, lighting plan doesn't meet our maximum 0.2 foot candles at side and rear lot lines. If you could just double check that.
So the only thing just for clarification on that one, Joanne, in my review, unless I'm missing something, the only place that we don't meet that is where we'd be looking for an easement from the Langleys because the drive aisle is actually going onto their property slightly. Is that the area you're talking about? Because if that's the location, because we do have .07 right on the property line right there, but that's intentional because it's the driveway. So it would be, if that could be included as part of the easement language, that light, light cast would
Can you
be.
shield the light to keep the light off of the neighbor's property?
Probably not.
No, because the road's going on it.
You can shield any light if you want to put the right.
I mean, we can shift the lights further away from that section. I guess I'm just saying, to me, it makes sense to have the light go onto the drive that is going that location.
If you can accommodate the lighting requirements by moving the light, that's probably your best option.
If that's what the board would like to see, we can do that.
If you'd like to get your plan passed, that's what you probably should be thinking about. Because if it doesn't meet the requirements, then it's a problem for us. So just think about solutions to get the things so you can get your approval.
Yes, sir.
So so what you're saying is those need to conform?
Well, you just said so.
Yeah, well, I agree, but.
I mean, they didn't
I don't know.
request a
The
waiver.
lighting, we have to
No.
conform to the lighting regulations. It's a simple solution. Or ask for a waiver of it.
That's why we have it.
I think that was all I had.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? So let's talk about the, Joanne, you're recommending October. Do we have any major information we need to get from them prior than them attending the Conservation Commission?
Prior to them attending the Conservation
So
Commission.
after they attend the CC, we could see them the next night, right?
If they were able to address the items that were discussed tonight, that were,
You're gonna be able to make your changes and get submissions done here within,
we could, the problem always happens is because of the mailing of the packets, which is done a week prior to the meeting, and then time for staff to review. That's why it's always been hard if we continue something 2 weeks out, because 1 week is already taken away for mailing of the packets.
Well, a question.
please?
I understand the conservation would like the applicant to come back. The applicant has said as to the lighting, actually as to all the things that we've commented on, the only one I really don't think I've heard a definitive answer on is the irrigation system. So would we normally, if we did not have the Conservation Commission, which I would like to respect them, we cancel a meeting in August, and they did, and that's just the way it goes. Would we normally be looking at those conditions like the condo docs, and which was one of my comments, and all those other things, as something that we would approve subject to the applicant doing those things? I mean, I'm not hearing any
We would make them administrative
Right,
decisions.
I'm not, unless I'm missing something other than hearing from the applicant on the irrigation plan. And so my point is, if there's nothing substantive that the board requires looking at, not that it's not all substantive, can we continue it to the 29th, because the only question will be Concom, and we won't really need new plans?
So what
And
are
then
we-
they, I'm sorry.
What are we looking for when we say irrigation system? And is this gonna be something standard we're gonna require of every project as we move forward? Because are we talking about an engineered, hard-piped drainage system, irrigation system?
We actually have no authority to require them to do anything of
We
the
have
sort.
asked for a note on the plan to indicate
So-
that there would be an irrigation system installed.
It's not uncommon to put notes in that the vegetation will maintain 75% survival after 1 year, and after 2 years, after 3 years, so you submit follow-up inspections to say, yep, it's been planted initially the way it was supposed to be planted, after 1 year, still had 75% survival. If it's not, you supplement it to bring it back up, and you can do that for a set number of years, 2 or 3 is pretty typical.
I understand that, but I'm also looking at this becoming a condo development that I do not have easy sight from the highway, and dealing with the issue, and it's probably something we need to consider in regs going forward, because it's becoming pretty clear that it's needed in these site plans. And I have real concerns about condominiums getting dumped with a lot of things that we may end up with COs. I think we're getting better about the COs requiring absolutely everything to be done. But that sort of coming back to my point is there anything that's not administrative as far as what else we would like to see, or something that would not be handled normally in the course of business after approval? And if that's the case, I think this can be continued to the next meeting, because really the only thing is the
And the lighting
comments.
solution, whatever
And
Doug's
the
gonna work
lighting
out for the lighting
solution, which Doug has committed to do, so.
I really don't think it makes a good point to move it out till October, because I'm sure they can accommodate what they need to get done in the appropriate amount of time.
And I don't know that I need new plans.
But I think we should put on our to-do list, deal with how we're gonna irrigate, or irrigation relative to landscaping plans.
So that's, yeah.
Can I have a consensus from the board? If comments come from the Conservation Commission, we would agree to all have them on the table here. We would not need them sent out in our packet. Everyone agree to that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Sure.
Right, and we should hold on to this.
Do we want to at least see a draft of the easement plan with these easement lines that we were talking about tonight, so you
Well,
can
I think
have
that's, I
eyes
think
on
that's
those.
administrative through
Okay.
you and
I just-
Joanne
I
to
didn't know
handle
if
the,
you- if
it's
the board
paperwork.
wanted to see them.
Yeah, I do too.
It's paperwork.
Okay.
Haven't we usually gotten those? I remember receiving easement documents in our packet. Don't we usually get those?
Yeah, we get them, but we,
I think it's a timing issue.
we generally get them, Barbara, but unless you have the skill to read them, which you're probably one of the few that has the
Actually, I do.
skill to read it, I wouldn't know if I was reading if it was an easement to, or what they were doing with it, because it's legalese.
We could commit to having the easement drafted prior to that next meeting.
And we have the condo docs.
Correct.
You have to look for them. There's many folders to this project.
Well, that,
Can you email out the condo docs
Unless
if
you
we're gonna
have
do
them
it next
handy,
week?
if you
Because I
could
think Colleen and I
resend
have
them,
actually
that
got
would be
more concerns about the
quicker.
condo docs.
so Doug, you've been making a list. What do you got on your list right now?
So I'm gonna move the lighting, I was gonna prepare the easement document,
What else?
and I was going to have a note on the irrigation. That was all I had for plan changes.
Did anybody else have anything here that needed to be dealt with? Your snow
I
storage, was
have
that
some.
shown on your
It's
plan?
on, it's
Yeah, it's
on.
on the
Bring-
site plan.
Move the bench
So that was a
back.
note
Oh,
from,
move the bench back, yep.
Note on the irrigation
he
system.
said that one already.
Uh,
Add a TBM.
Well, those are
The
the stuff that you-
sidewalk needs to be changed to 5 feet.
5-foot sidewalk, yep.
Um, Change the numbering of the buildings.
Yep.
While Joanne's going through a list, Scott, are you saying that you don't think the drainage is on the town property?
No, there's a small amount of grading that is just that they're regrading the swale.
An existing
An
swale.
existing swale. And the only reason it's being regraded is
Number.
kind of the grading of the BMP that's off of the town property. That, I don't see it being a
That
major
should not
issue.
be a
It's not like the treatment area is anywhere on the town property. Where the other application we were discussing earlier, like the whole basin was
So
in
there's
town.
no issues in regards to the maintenance that the condominium association will be required to do as far as needing to come on town property?
No, because it's an existing swale, so it's,
That could be a condition.
I don't know how the Goffstown, Friends of the Goffstown Rail Trail deals with their side swales, but I tend to believe you don't do much with them, or?
Correct.
So,
Okay.
That shouldn't be a showstopper.
yeah.
Make the grading work, keep it on the side or whatever the easement.
From 4 to 5.
Yes, I did.
I think he has everything. And then we'll have to make a condition that they need the select board's approval to cross the rail trail.
I'll make a
Can you
motion
think
to
of anything
continue
else?
to the next meeting.
I'll second it.
Motion to continue to,
September 28th.
we have nothing on that, on our meeting schedule for that anyway.
Yeah, we have
We
the
have
application
one.
from tonight that was
Yeah.
continued.
Yeah.
And we have another one too.
The one that was continued,
You would've worked
the
for it.
doing the landscape stone.
So we have a motion by Barbara,
Yeah, I second it.
Bill
We
seconded,
just got sent one.
to continue this
It's a-
application
we have
to
another
September
Yeah, there is another
28th.
one, it's a lot line adjustment, I think, right?
Oh, that one has to go to the
Excuse me.
ZBA first.
Excuse
So
us,
we're not doing it?
No.
yo-ho, excuse us, we're in the middle of a motion. All those in favor of the motion to move this to 9:28, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? I would like to make an out-of-turn request here too. You know, I'd like you guys to return to the sewer commission with your temporary crossing of the rail trail for construction purposes prior to the installation of the slabs. Because your representative told us that is the last thing you're gonna do under.
The access, you're saying?
the concrete slab construction is the last thing you're gonna do on your way out to finish the project. So we'd like to return and give us a plan for what your temporary construction measures are to protect the pipe during the construction phase.
Heavy trucks.
All right. So you folks are all set. Thank you very much. We'll see you on the 28th.
Thank you.
We have a few unfinished items here. I'm going to spin back to Kimberly with her.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, could we, I know it's only 10 o'clock, but could we
Postpone
put
it?
off, postpone those?
All of them. All of them.
Well, when is the select board meeting? When do you need the thing on the land acquisition of Rotary Park? When are you addressing that?
Let's see, we're taking a vote on that, I think at the next meeting.
So they met this Monday, so
We held the 2 necessary hearings.
You held
meet
both?
again.
So it
they
will be
meet
before our next meeting.
The
They will meet the week of
25th,
our
yeah,
meeting.
it'd be before the meeting.
So that is,
No
that
sooner
we
than
do.
10-2. The public hearing notice says,
Should say right on.
What
Oh,
are
no,
the dates?
sooner than
10-2.
10-2, so we can
Yeah,
either
so we can
address
do
it
that.
tonight or the next meeting.
Thank you.
I don't.
Board members, everybody got your letter regarding the Checkerberry Lane?
Yeah.
Yes.
Everybody read it, everybody got it, everybody
Yep.
got the responses?
Yep.
Now, there's another one that was left
On the table
on the
tonight.
table, which was a follow-up.
Okay, everybody got them?
Okay.
Yep.
And they are a matter of public record, so they're not secret. I'm just not gonna discuss them in,
We don't have anything to
in,
discuss.
on our agenda tonight. Does anybody else have anything else for this board that was not discussed that they wanna carry on about?
Me, I got 2 minutes.
Please.
Okay. We changed the capital improvements handbook.
I thought Barbara just asked to
No,
postpone it.
shush, Barbara. This is it's massively administrative. I just want to point out, the only change that I think that is most relevant to everyone is on page 7 in the red line. We upped the definition of capital improvement projects, and expenditures which cost or commit used to be $25,000. We bumped that up to $50,000, so that we don't have to deal with such small issues. And then we moved over to page 8, it was a red line. The cost of studies was previously at $10,000, we moved those studies up to $25,000.
Are you reading out of this?
Yes, I'm reading out the
So
red
you're
line.
just changing the thresholds?
So we were changing the threshold.
And there were some
Okay.
others, minor
Yes,
changes.
there are other administrative changes.
All
to
right, I
select
want to go to
board.
the form. You
Okay.
proposed to change in the form,
And we propose to change to the form, yes.
which is substantive. And I know from my prior service on CIP that the application is lots of paper.
Yes.
So where on this form, and I'm assuming that what we're talking about is the summary,
Yes,
so
the
what are we
stage,
left
yes.
with for a form now in the future?
So what we're left with is, it's the same information, it's basically condensed down, and we tried to look at,
Is it just this one-page summary worksheet?
yes.
Okay.
We tried to look at what's given in the matrix, and then what else do we need that's not in the matrix? Because essentially, we all follow the matrix.
Where is the category?
It has project category. It has
Oh,
matrix, it
okay.
has project
Oh,
category.
I'm sorry, there it is, I just
Project
didn't see.
name.
Okay.
I spoke with Danielle before I left today, and she said she probably will, just modify it slightly where it will be a PDF where you can just go in and type in your answers. The way they're using the old forms now, they're very ancient. And
Right, they're
they
working off the
basically
forms.
copy the same thing every year, so it doesn't
Right.
really give you a lot of information about what the project entails and how important it is. Even though they rate it, there's just not a lot there. So we were hoping if they were to use a form like this for projects that need further explanation, it wouldn't be used for every single item like they do now.
Right.
And they get very frustrated with that. We had a big problem this year trying to collect the CIP requests from the department heads.
Oh, yeah, they did it. Okay.
They're also.
So
there's
Kimberly's
the-
the 15 the old and 19 the new?
Bill,
Yeah.
ahead of you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The only thing I have to say is when I got this stuff and I looked through it, and I open up this package and I'm looking at stuff that's like this that I can't even read. The print is so small and it's got lines through it. Then when I go with the handbook that this thing is supposed to be modifying and I look at this print that I can read, and I'm looking at this, okay, I gave up on it.
I didn't do it, don't you know me?
Well, I'm just saying is that you're over here explaining this stuff, you pick this sheet up, you can't even read it. So if we're going, my point is if we're gonna be asked,
formatted differently.
if we're gonna be asked to read this stuff to approve it, it should be that it's legible.
Well, if we need it reprinted, then Joanne, we can
Well,
ask
if you
Danielle
can
to
read this.
reprint it. Well, I can't because I was there, so I know it. So, but that's it.
That's a moot point. He can fix clocks, you can't.
If you want it reprinted in a different format and we need to kick this
Not
down
the
the road.
format, it's the size.
It's a 3.5.
Print size, print size.
Yeah, print size. My point is
That's
this,
why we had
Go ahead,
a
make your
bill
point.
to
This is
actually
the
have a
manual,
font size in the application.
and this is
Oh,
the
yeah.
other sheet. Look at the difference in the sizes.
We did.
But
Yeah.
I guess I question, if you guys want to read it, you can provide comments back to us. I mean, that's
Do you
fine.
want me to send you a new copy in a larger format?
I would like it in the size.
We'll put it on the next agenda.
If you can get it to him prior to the next meeting, we can discuss it at the next meeting and maybe resolve it, rather than kick the can down the road
Yeah.
another month.
It is small, I could read it, but yeah. But my question is 15 and through 17 old and
Yeah,
what's
that's all
proposed in
gonna go
19?
away.
Yes,
Okay,
so we
all
had
right.
these multi-page forms that we, it's, as Joanne said, they're just
Trying to simplify.
cumbersome. So we're trying to simplify it
Okay.
down to the one-page form.
Joanne, who prepares the matrix for us to look at?
Danielle.
Could you please ask her to put the years to the top of the columns next
Yes.
to
Yeah.
I'm there writing them in.
the first time we've ever had a matrix that didn't have the years carrying on, I had to keep flipping back and flipping back.
If it
When I'm
wasn't-
writing them in the
Right,
end.
that's
If
what I
it
did.
wasn't that tonight,
hard to
we were
follow.
sitting here.
That was
You want to carry
really,
it through.
But I will say Danielle worked
Yeah, I
with
was
Scott
gonna say
Gross
that
on
one.
Yeah, that's,
Matrix Magic, and so she put a
Okay.
lot of time in
Well,
this year, we all appreciate
she
it.
probably
Yeah,
had the
look,
columns memorized where we don't.
Yes.
All right, so we're all expected to look at our CIP handbook, red line, and we will have a discussion on our next meeting. So we
Motion
have
to
some-
adjourn.
Okay.
Anybody else want to do something?
I have
before-
one thing.
Joanne?
Now I have to remember what it was.
If you can't remember in 5 seconds, you forget.
It was important.
3,
Must have been.
2,
I know.
up, you made it.
You know how you told me to go and talk to the Marc Brugiere about the impact fees for the library? Well, I spoke with Diane, and she had provided me with an explanation of kind of what they were going to use the money for. So they're requesting $200,000 a year in the CIP if it passes. But it's basically more for repairing items that's already there, replacing things. It's not like a capital improvement, like the expansion of the facility. So the way Mark explained it to me is that you collect the money from the applicants, but you could only hold it for 6 years. So if we've collected all of these monies
And they haven't spent it.
and they haven't even have a plan yet
To give it
together,
back. Right.
it's a pain in the neck, but you have to return it. And I believe you have to return it with interest. So he said that it's really not a good idea at this time, it's premature, to do anything with impact fees for the library.
Well, does state statute define who we can assign impact fees to, Barbara?
Yes.
Is the library on that list?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, fine. Make sure they were legally entitled to.
So maybe at a later date
When they have a more concrete
Yeah.
plan.
So in the meantime, I'll bring the contract to Derek for him to sign, and then we can get that project on the way.
Are we getting our development regs back in the next millennium?
I've looked through
It's my
the
fault.
latest
It's on my
draft.
plate
I'm not
now.
blaming you, I'm blaming Oil
And-
Tanner, because they're the ones that got it.
we need to do one more go-round
Okay,
before
good.
we bring it to this board.
You're progressing.
She's
I've
reviewed
done
their
it, I
comments.
actually
It's-
did it.
I have to get my MS4 permit, or MS4 report done by the end of the month, and then I can.
Well, you're either
focus
gonna
on
be
this.
in the comments, or we're gonna go right by you, Scott, so
That's
figure it out. Because we need to move
MS4
forward.
is
These
more
have been
important
in
than
gaggle land for over a year now that I can remember.
Yeah, the problem is we got them back in the summer, and we were supposed to get them in the winter, so.
Okay, well, you're
Yeah,
not-
that's
you're
too
left
much
by
time.
busy.
Busy time.
Anything else from board members?
Motion to
Bill
adjourn.
made a motion to adjourn.
Well, Bill's not ready to, we're not ready to grant this motion yet.
Second, I second the motion.
Guys, you wanted to stay here, huh?
Motion to adjourn has been made by Phil, seconded by Kimberly. Anybody want to discuss the motion?
Yes.
Good night.
Okay, what do you have to say, Carl?
Discuss it at length.
All those in
Actually,
favor
it's
say
not
aye.
debatable.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're out of here. Thank you very much. Motion passes.